Sarah Beth. Winchester's hands froze on the butter churn the moment she saw him 6'4" of scandal wrapped in leather and dust. Jack Morgan, the man her mother called the devil's own temptation. Their eyes met across Main Street, and something inside her cracked open like summer thunder. She'd spent 22 years being good, being pure, being afraid. But when he tipped his hat and smiled, she felt her carefully stitched life begin to unravel. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and stay until the end of this story. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled. Sarah Beth's fingers wouldn't stop shaking. The butter churn lay in pieces at her feet, cream soaking into the dry dirt of Main Street. She'd been carrying it from the general store when she'd seen him, really seen him for the first time in her adult life. Jack Morgan stood outside the saloon, one boot propped against the hitching post. Even from 30 feet away, she could feel the weight of his presence. "You all right there, Miss Winchester?" His voice carried across the street low and rough as creek stones. Every head on Main Street turned. Mrs. Abernathy clutched her pearls. Mr. Chen paused mid-sweep outside his laundry. Even the horses seemed to hold their breath. Sarah's throat closed. She nodded once sharp and bent to gather the broken pieces. He moved before she could stop him. Jack Morgan crossed that dusty street in 4 long strides, his shadow falling over her. Up close, he was even more than the whispers suggested. Shoulders that could block out the sun, hands that could span her waist, eyes the color of whiskey watching her with something that made her stomach flip. "Let me help you with that." "I don't need—" Her voice came out strangled. "I know you don't." He crouched beside her anyway, gathering pieces of the wooden churn. "But I'm helping regardless." His fingers brushed hers as he handed her a piece of oak. The touch lasted less than a second, but Sarah felt it all the way to her bones. Her skin burned where he'd touched her. The air between them tasted like copper and possibility. "Thank you, Mr. Morgan." She stood too quickly, clutching the broken churn to her chest. "I should my father will be—" "Your father's a good man." Jack rose to his full height, and Sarah had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Probably wouldn't want you talking to the likes of me." "He says you're dangerous." The words escaped before she could stop them. Jack's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "Your father's a smart man too." Then he tipped his hat and walked away, leaving Sarah standing in the middle of Main Street with her heart hammering against her ribs and her carefully ordered world tilting on its axis. "Sarah Beth Winchester, what in the Lord's name were you thinking?" Her mother's voice cut through the kitchen like a whip. Mama stood at the stove, wooden spoon clenched in her fist, face flushed with anger and fear. "I dropped the butter churn. He helped me pick it up. That's all." "That's all?" Mama's laugh was sharp. "That man is sin in boots, child. You know what they say about him." Sarah kept her eyes on the table. She knew. Everyone knew. Jack Morgan, the rancher who'd come to Redemption Creek 5 years ago with money and mystery. Jack Morgan, who could make a woman forget her name with one look. Jack Morgan, who'd supposedly ruined 3 girls from neighboring towns, left them unable to marry anyone else because no man could compare. "They're just stories, Mama." "Stories built on truth." Mama crossed to the table, her voice dropping low. "That man isn't just big in stature, Sarah Beth. They say he's proportioned accordingly. Say he split Nancy Carmichael clean in half trying to—" She caught herself, cheeks reddening. "Point is, he's not for girls like you. He's not for any decent girl." Sarah's face burned. He was being kind. Wolves are kind too, right before they bite. Mama set the spoon down hard. "My sister learned that lesson 30 years ago. Met a traveling gambler with smooth words and smoother hands. Papa forbid her from seeing him. She snuck out anyway, every night for a month." "What happened?" Mama's face went hard. "Papa caught them in the barn. The gambler had her dress half off and promises falling out of his mouth like rain. Said he'd marry her, take her to St. Louis, give her the world. So Papa let them marry against his better judgment. Sarah waited. 6 months later she came home. No husband, no money, pregnant and abandoned. She died giving birth to a baby that didn't survive the night. Mama's voice cracked. I was 12 years old and I watched my sister bleed out on our kitchen table because she believed a man's lies. The kitchen felt too small suddenly. Sarah couldn't breathe. I won't let that happen to you, Mama said. I won't lose you to a man who takes what he wants and leaves nothing but ruin behind. Jack Morgan isn't a gambler. No, he's worse. Mama's eyes filled with tears. Because he's honest about what he is. He won't lie to you or promise you forever. He'll just take what he wants and leave you empty. At least a liar gives you false hope. Jack Morgan won't even give you that. The door to the parsonage opened. Papa's boots scraped the threshold and both women fell silent. Reverend Josiah Winchester filled the doorway, his severe face carved from granite and scripture. I heard what happened in town today. Sarah's stomach dropped. Papa moved to his chair at the head of the table, settling into it with the weight of judgment. He looked at Sarah for a long moment, his eyes the same gray-blue as her own, searching her face. Did he touch you? No, Papa, he just... Did he speak inappropriately? No, sir. Papa nodded slowly. Then there's no harm done. But Sarah Beth, listen to me carefully. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. Jack Morgan is not an evil man, but he's a dangerous one for someone like you. Not because he's cruel, but because he's tempting. You understand the difference. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Then we won't speak of this again. You'll avoid him, and that'll be the end of it. But Sarah knew, even as she nodded agreement, that it wouldn't be the end of anything. That night, alone in her narrow bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Jack's hand had looked next to hers, so much larger, rough with work and life. She couldn't stop remembering the way his voice had sounded low and careful, like he was gentling a spooked horse. She touched her own hand where his fingers had brushed. The skin felt different now, like it remembered something she didn't quite understand. Sarah tried. Lord knows she tried. For 3 days, she filled every waking moment with work. She scrubbed floors until her knees ached. She mended every piece of clothing in the house. She helped Mama preserve vegetables and visited every sick parishioner in town. She read scripture until the words blurred together. None of it worked. At night, the thoughts came anyway. What would those large hands feel like against her skin? What would that low voice sound like whispering her name? What made 3 grown women unable to forget him? On the 4th night, Sarah dropped to her knees beside her bed. Please, she whispered into the darkness. Please take this away from me. But prayer had always been easy before. Comfortable. A conversation with a God she'd never questioned. Now kneeling on the hard wooden floor, Sarah realized she didn't know what she was praying for anymore. Take away the desire, or give her the courage to understand it. She pressed her forehead against her clasped hands. The wood beneath her knees bit into bone. Good. She deserved the pain. She deserved worse. I don't want to be wicked, she said aloud. I don't want to shame Mama and Papa. I don't want to end up like Aunt Catherine bleeding out on a kitchen table because I believed a lie. But Jack Morgan hadn't lied to her. He'd barely spoken to her at all. He'd helped her pick up broken wood and walked away. That was all. So why couldn't she stop thinking about him? What's wrong with me? Her voice cracked. Why can't I just be content with what I have? Why do I feel like I'm suffocating in a life that should be enough? God didn't answer. Or maybe he did in the silence that felt less like peace and more like permission. Sarah climbed into bed, but she didn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting her heartbeats, feeling her body exist in ways she'd never noticed before. The weight of her nightgown against her skin. The way her chest rose and fell with each breath. The strange ache low in her belly that had nothing to do with hunger. She was 22 years old, and she'd never questioned her body before. It had simply been a vessel for her soul, a thing to be kept clean and modest and pure. But now, lying in the darkness, she wondered what else it might be for. The question terrified her. The question thrilled her. And somewhere in that tension between terror and thrill, Sarah Beth Winchester made a decision. She would go to the creek at dawn. Just once. Just to see if he was there. Just to understand why her carefully ordered world had tilted on its axis the moment Jack Morgan's fingers brushed hers. The sky was still dark when Sarah slipped out of the parsonage. The town slept around her. Her footsteps crunched too loud on the dirt road. Every shadow looked like her father's disapproving silhouette. Every sound made her jump, but she kept walking. The creek lay just beyond the edge of town, hidden by willow trees that hung low over the water. Sarah had come here as a child, before her mother decided it wasn't proper for young ladies to wander alone. The path was overgrown now, but her feet remembered the way. She pushed through the willows and stopped. Jack Morgan stood in the shallow's water up to his knees. His shirt sleeves rolled past his elbows. He was washing his face, his movements slow and methodical. The rising sun painted everything gold, the water, the trees, his skin. He looked up and saw her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Sarah's heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. She should run. She should apologize and leave and never come back. But she didn't move. Jack straightened slowly. Water dripped from his hands. "Miss Winchester." "Mr. Morgan? You shouldn't be here." "I know." He waded out of the creek, his boots squelching in the mud. He stopped 10 feet away, keeping distance between them. His hair was wet, curling slightly at his collar. His eyes were cautious. "Does your father know where you are?" "No." "Your mother?" "No." Jack closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, something had shifted in his expression. "Sarah Beth, I need you to understand something. I come here every morning. Have for 3 years. It's the one place I can think without the town watching. But if you start coming here too, people will notice. They'll talk. And they won't be kind about it. Let them talk. You don't mean that." "You're right. I don't." She took a step closer. "But I'm here anyway." The air between them felt charged, like right before a thunderstorm. Jack's jaw tightened. His hands clenched at his sides. "What do you want from me, Sarah Beth?" "I don't know." The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. I can't stop thinking about you. About what people say. About why 3 women couldn't forget you. And I know that's shameful. I know that's wrong. But I'm tired of not understanding things. I'm tired of being afraid of questions." Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Ask me anything. I'll answer honestly. But then you go home and don't come back. Deal?" Sarah's chest felt tight. "Deal." "All right then. Ask. Did you love any of them, the 3 women?" "No." His answer was immediate. "I liked them, respected them. But love, no." "Did you force them?" "Never. I've never taken anything that wasn't freely offered." "Did you hurt them on purpose?" Jack's face darkened. "No, but I hurt them anyway. I'm a big man, Sarah Beth. In every way a man can be big. And I've been with women who thought they could handle that, who begged for it even. But biology doesn't care about want. Some of them couldn't physically accommodate me without pain. And no matter how careful I tried to be, it wasn't always enough." Heat flooded Sarah's face, but she held his gaze. "Nancy Carmichael." Nancy was engaged to Tom Jenkins. She came to me 3 weeks before her wedding and said she wanted to experience something her husband-to-be couldn't give her. I told her no 3 times. She kept insisting, said it was her last chance to feel something real before settling into a safe small life. He paused. "I should have said no a 4th time. But I didn't. And yes, I hurt her. Not as bad as people say, but bad enough. She cried. I stopped immediately. She left. And 2 months later she married Tom and told everyone I'd forced myself on her. Did you? No, but I understood why she said it. It was easier than admitting she'd chosen it. Jack's voice was flat empty. After that I decided I was done. No more women. No more trying. I bought my ranch and told myself I'd live alone and that would be enough. Was it? For 5 years, yeah, it was. Sarah took another step closer. What changed? You did. The words came out rough, almost angry. You and your trembling hands and your curious eyes and your questions. You make me want things I swore I'd given up on. What things? Don't ask me that. What things, Jack? He closed the distance between them in 2 strides. Suddenly he was right there, towering over her, his chest heaving with controlled breaths. Sarah could smell him leather and soap, and something earthier like creek water and wild mint. I want to kiss you, he said, his voice low and dangerous. I want to know what those lips taste like. I want to hear you say my name without Mr. in front of it. I want to show you every single thing that makes women unable to forget me. And I want to do it slowly, carefully, until you're not afraid anymore. That's what I want. Sarah's breath came fast. Her whole body felt like it was vibrating. Then why don't you? Because wanting something doesn't mean you should have it. Because you're the preacher's daughter, and I'm the town scandal. Because this story doesn't end well for either of us. He raised his hand, hovering it beside her face, without quite touching. And because I'm trying for once in my life to be a good man, instead of a selfish one. What if I don't want you to be good? Jack's hand dropped. He stepped back, putting space between them. Then you're confused. You're curious. And that's natural. But confusion and curiosity aren't reasons to ruin your life. Stop telling me what I feel. I'm not. I'm telling you what I see. His eyes held hers. You've been sheltered your whole life, Sarah Beth. Kept safe and pure and innocent. You've never been kissed, never been touched, never even let yourself think about what your body might want. And now, you're 22 years old, and you see a man who represents everything you're not supposed to have. That makes me fascinating. But fascination isn't love. It's not even desire. It's just curiosity dressed up in a skirt. Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. You don't know me. I know you better than you think. His voice gentled. I know you're the preacher's daughter who's never stepped wrong in her life. I know you probably help your mama with every chore, say your prayers every night, and judge yourself harder than anyone else ever could. I know you had a brother who drowned when you were 10, and you've spent the last 12 years trying to be good enough for 2 children instead of 1. I know you're terrified of disappointing your parents. And I know that I'm the first thing that's ever made you question whether being good is the same as being alive. Sarah couldn't breathe. How did he know about her brother? How did he see so much? That's why you need to go home, Jack continued. Not because I don't want you. God knows I do. But because you deserve better than being some rancher's mistake. You deserve to figure out who you are without me confusing things. And I deserve to stop hurting women who don't understand what they're asking for. What if I never figure out who I am? The question came out broken. Then you stay safe in your cage. You marry whoever your father picks. You have babies and run a house, and never wonder what else might have been possible. And there's honor in that, real honor. Most women would call that a good life. But 20 years from now, you'll see some girl standing where you're standing right now. And you'll tell yourself you made the right choice. And you'll wonder every single day if you're lying. The words hit like a fist, because they were true. Because Sarah could see that future stretching out in front of her, safe, small, suffocating. I should go, she whispered. Yeah, you should. But neither of them moved. They stood there by the creek, breathing each other's air, trembling with want and restraint, and the terrible knowledge that some doors once opened could never be closed again. Finally, Sarah turned and walked back through the willows. She didn't look back. If she had, she would have seen Jack Morgan sink down onto a rock, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with something that might have been laughter or might have been tears. Sarah didn't go back to the creek the next morning. She went back every morning for 3 weeks. She told herself she was just walking, just getting fresh air before the day started, just enjoying the sunrise. But Jack was always there, and they always talked. The first few mornings they kept their distance, 20 feet of creek water between them. Safe, polite, careful. By the end of the first week, they were sitting on opposite banks, voices carrying over the water. "Tell me about your ranch," Sarah said on the 8th morning. Jack's face softened. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." So he told her. About buying the land 5 years ago with money he'd earned working oil fields in Texas. About building the house with his own hands, every board and nail. About the 50 head of cattle he was trying to grow into a herd. About morning frost on fence posts and the weight of a newborn calf in your arms, and the way the land stretched so far you could see tomorrow from your front porch. Sarah found herself leaning forward, caught by the quiet passion in his voice. "You love it," she said. "It's mine. First thing I've ever owned that nobody can take away." He looked at her across the water. "What about you? What does the preacher's daughter dream about?" No one had ever asked her that. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've never let myself dream about anything except being good." "That's not a dream. That's a cage." The word hit her like a slap, because it was true. By the second week, they'd moved to the same bank, 10 feet between them instead of 20. Still not touching, but close enough to see the gold flecks in his eyes, close enough to watch his throat move when he swallowed. "Tell me about your family," Sarah said on the 12th morning. Jack's face went hard. "Not much to tell." "Try." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My father was a mean drunk. Beat my mother until she stopped fighting back. Beat me until I got big enough to hit back. When I was 17, he came at me with a belt, and I broke his jaw. That's when I knew I had to leave, because next time I might kill him." "Where's your mother now?" "Dead. 3 years after I left. My father drank himself to death 2 years later." His voice was flat, empty. "I didn't go to either funeral." Sarah's chest ached. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm not." He looked at her. "But that's why I understand cages, Sarah Beth. I lived in one for 17 years. So when I see you trapped in yours, I recognize it." "My cage isn't the same as yours." "No, yours is prettier, has better intentions, but it's still a cage." By the 3rd week, they sat close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The air between them crackled with tension. Every accidental brush of fingers felt like lightning. Every shared laugh felt dangerous. On the 19th morning, Sarah asked, "What happened with the first woman before Nancy Carmichael?" Jack was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Her name was Rebecca. I was 23 working a cattle drive. She was the rancher's daughter. Older than me by 5 years. Experienced. She initiated everything, made it clear what she wanted. I warned her I was big. She laughed and said she could handle it." He paused. "She couldn't. I tried to be careful, but halfway through she started crying. Told me to stop. I did immediately. But the damage was done literally. She bled. Not bad, but enough to scare us both. Her father found out and ran me off the ranch. Told everyone I'd forced her. I lost 3 months' wages and my reputation in one night." "That's not fair." "No, but it taught me something important." He looked at her. "Sometimes wanting something isn't enough. Sometimes good intentions don't matter. Sometimes you can do everything right and still hurt people." "Is that why you stopped?" "That's why I tried to stop. Rebecca was the first. Then there was a widow in Oklahoma. That time was better, but she still said it hurt more than it was worth. And then Nancy." He shook his head. "After Nancy, I decided I was done. No more women. No more trying. I'd just work my ranch and live alone, and that would be enough. Was it? For 5 years, yeah. It was. He turned to face her fully. Until you. Sarah's breath caught. That's why you need to stop coming here. Jack said, his voice rough. Because every morning I see you, it gets harder to remember why I decided to be alone. Every conversation makes me want things I have no right to want. And sooner or later, I'm going to slip. I'm going to reach for you. And then we're both ruined. What if I want you to reach for me? You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me. The words hung between them. Jack's hands clenched into fists. His jaw worked. Sarah could see the war happening behind his eyes, want versus restraint, desire versus honor. No, he said finally. I won't do that to you. Why not? Because I respect you too damn much. He stood abruptly. Because you deserve better than a rough tumble with a man who'd split you in half trying to fit. Because you're the preacher's daughter, and I'm the town scandal, and this story doesn't end well for either of us. He started walking toward the willows, then stopped and turned back. And because I'm trying for once in my life to be the man I should have been instead of the man I am. So do us both a favor, Sarah Beth. Don't come back here tomorrow, or any day after, because my restraint isn't infinite and I don't trust myself much longer. Then he walked away, leaving Sarah sitting by the creek with tears streaming down her face and her chest carved hollow. But she'd tasted something at that creek. She'd felt something real, not just desire, but connection, understanding, the sense of being seen for the first time in her life. And Jack Morgan was right about one thing. Once you opened that door, you couldn't close it again. Everything else in her life suddenly felt unbearably small. The town noticed her crying at church on Sunday. Sarah sat in the front pew beside her parents, and every hymn felt like a funeral. The words about sin and redemption and righteousness scraped against something raw inside her. After the service, Mrs. Abernathy cornered her mother by the door. Reverend's daughter looks peaked. Mrs. Abernathy said loud enough for half the congregation to hear. Hope she's not coming down with something. She's fine, Mama said tightly. Just tired. But Mama's eyes found Sarah's across the room, and Sarah saw the knowledge there, the fear, the recognition. That afternoon, Mama confronted her in the kitchen. You've been to see him, haven't you? Sarah's hands stilled over the bread dough she'd been kneading. Mama, don't lie to me, child. I've seen that look before. My own sister had it 30 years ago. Mama's voice shook. Please tell me you haven't done anything irreversible. We've just talked, that's all, I swear. Just talked. Mama laughed bitterly. That's how it starts. Just talking. Just walking. Just one more meeting. And then one day you wake up and you're ruined, and there's no going back. I'm not Aunt Catherine. No, you're smarter than she was, which makes this worse because you should know better. Mama crossed to the table, her movements tired. Do you know how she died? Sarah? Beth really died. Sarah shook her head. The baby was breech. She labored for 18 hours. The midwife tried to turn the baby, but it was too late. Catherine bled, and there was nothing we could do. Mama's voice cracked. I was 12 years old holding my sister's hand while she screamed. And you know what her last words were? Tell Papa he was right. Tell him I'm sorry. Tears streamed down Mama's face. She spent her last breaths apologizing for loving the wrong man. And I will not watch you make the same mistake. Sarah's chest felt like it was caving in. Jack's not like that gambler. Then what is he like? Tell me, make me understand why you're willing to risk everything for a man the whole town warns you about. Sarah struggled to find words. He's honest. He doesn't lie to me or make false promises. He actually listens when I talk. He asks me what I want, what I dream about. He sees me, Mama. Not the preacher's daughter. Not the good girl. Just me. And what does he want in return? Nothing. He keeps telling me to stay away. Mama's face softened slightly. Then maybe he's a better man than I thought. He is. That's what I've been trying to tell you. But that doesn't change the facts, Sarah Beth. He's still the man who hurt 3 women. He's still the town scandal. And you're still my daughter, and I won't watch you throw your life away for curiosity disguised as love. It's not just curiosity. Then what is it? Sarah opened her mouth and closed it. Because she didn't have an answer. Was it love? Desire? Simple fascination. She didn't know. All she knew was that every moment away from that creek felt like suffocating. I don't know, she admitted finally. But I want to find out. Mama closed her eyes. Then God help us both. Sarah didn't go to the creek the next morning. She tried. She got dressed before dawn, fully intending to walk out that door. But when she reached for the handle, Mama's voice stopped her. Don't. Mama stood in the doorway to her bedroom, her nightgown ghostly in the pre-dawn darkness. Just for one morning, Sarah Beth. Stay home. Prove to yourself that you can. So Sarah stayed, and it was agony. She scrubbed floors that didn't need scrubbing. She reorganized the pantry twice. She snapped at Papa during breakfast and cried during lunch. By evening, her skin felt too tight for her body. Is this what love feels like? She asked Mama while they washed dishes. Or am I just sick? Mama was quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't know, sweetheart. I married your father because our parents arranged it. I cared for him, respected him. But love, she shook her head. I learned to love him over time. It was never this wild, desperate thing you're describing. So, I am sick. Or you're awakening. Mama's voice was sad. And that's just as dangerous. The next morning, Sarah went back to the creek. Jack was there sitting on their rock, his head in his hands. He looked up when she pushed through the willows, and something like relief and despair crossed his face simultaneously. You came back. I tried not to. I know. I tried not to come either. He stood. We need to stop this, Sarah Beth, before it's too late. What if it's already too late? Jack closed his eyes. Then we're both fools. They stood there, the creek rushing between them, the sun painting everything gold. Sarah could see Jack trembling with restraint, could see the war in his eyes. I can't stop thinking about you, she whispered. I tried. I prayed. I stayed away for one whole day, but I can't make it stop. I know, I can't either. So what do? Jack opened his eyes. We make a choice. Either we end this now, I leave Redemption Creek, you move on with your life. Or what? Or I do the one thing I swore I'd never do again. His voice was raw. I ask your father's permission to court you properly. Sarah's heart stopped. You'd do that? For you? Yeah, I would. He took a step closer. But you need to understand what that means. It means the whole town watching us. It means your father's rules and expectations. It means courting you in daylight in public with chaperones. It means I don't touch you, don't kiss you, don't do anything that could ruin your reputation. And it means that if your father says no, I walk away and never look back. And if he says yes, then I prove to you, to him, to this whole damn town, that I can be the man you deserve. Not the man I was. The man I want to be. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. You'd really do all that? I'd do worse for a chance at being worthy of you. His voice broke. So what do you say, Sarah Beth? Do I go talk to your father, or do we end this now while we still can? Sarah looked at him, this giant of a man who'd hurt women by accident, who carried so much shame, who was offering to change his entire life for her. This man who saw her, really saw her, and asked her what she wanted, instead of telling her what she should have. Talk to my father, she said. Jack's face crumpled with something that looked like gratitude and terror. All right then. God help us both. 3 days later, Jack Morgan walked into Reverend Winchester's church. Sarah was sweeping the sanctuary when she heard the door open. She turned, expecting Mama or one of the church ladies. Instead, she saw Jack's silhouette filling the doorway, hat in hands, shoulders squared like a man walking to his execution. "Mr. Morgan." Papa's voice came from the altar, cold and formal. "This is unexpected." Jack stepped inside his boots, echoing on the wooden floor. He looked bigger somehow in the small church, more dangerous. But his face was set with determination. "Reverend Winchester, I need to speak with you. About your daughter." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. Papa descended from the altar slowly, each step measured. "Is that so?" "Yes, sir." "Sarah Beth, go help your mother in the parsonage." "Papa, I should—" "Now." She fled. But she didn't go to the parsonage. Instead, she pressed herself against the outside wall of the church, beneath an open window, and listened. "You've been meeting with my daughter in secret." Papa's voice was flat, dangerous. Sarah held her breath. "Yes, sir. For 3 weeks. Every morning at the creek." "Did you touch her?" "No, sir. Not beyond catching her arm once when she slipped on wet rocks." "Did you speak inappropriately?" "I told her the truth about my reputation. About the women I'd hurt. I warned her away from me multiple times. Told her she should stay away." A long pause. "And yet she kept coming back." "Yes, sir." "Why?" Jack's voice dropped. "Because she's curious. Because she's been sheltered her whole life, and I represent something different. Because she's 22 years old, and nobody's ever asked her what she wants, only told her what she should be." "And what do you want, Mr. Morgan?" "I want to court her properly." The silence stretched so long, Sarah thought she might scream. Then Papa spoke, his voice deadly quiet. "You've lost your mind." "Maybe. Probably." Jack's voice didn't waver. "But I'm asking anyway. I know my reputation. I know what people say, and I know most of it's earned. But Sarah Beth, your daughter, she's the first thing in my life I've wanted badly enough to be better for." "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm not promising I'll be perfect. I'm not promising I won't fail. But I'm promising I'll try. I'll court her in town in daylight with a chaperone if you want. I'll prove to you and this whole town that I can be the man she deserves." More silence. "Why her? Why now?" "Because she asked me what I dream about, and for the first time in my life, I had an answer." Jack's voice roughened. "Because she sees me, not my reputation, not my size, not what people whisper. She sees me, and that's rarer than gold, Reverend. That's worth fighting for." Sarah pressed her hand over her mouth, stifling a sob. "My daughter is not a prize to be won, Mr. Morgan." "No, sir. She's a woman with her own mind and her own choices. That's why I'm asking you first, because she respects your opinion, and I respect her. But if you say no, I'm asking her anyway, because she deserves to know someone wants her enough to try." Another pause, longer this time. Sarah could hear Papa's chair scrape. "Get out of my church." Her heart sank. "Yes, sir." Boot steps toward the door. "Jack Morgan." The steps stopped. "You hurt her, and I'll kill you myself. Understood." A pause. Then rough with emotion. "Yes, sir. Understood." "Be here Sunday after service. You'll sit with us for dinner. If my daughter agrees, you may court her under my supervision. 6 weeks. No touching, no private meetings. You prove yourself or you're done. Clear. Crystal, sir. Now get out before I change my mind." The door opened and closed. Sarah slid down the wall, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. Inside the church, she heard Papa sink into a pew. Then faintly, "Lord, give me wisdom, because I think I'm about to watch my daughter fall in love with the most dangerous man in 3 counties. And God help me, I think he might actually deserve her." Sarah pressed her forehead against her knees and cried tears of relief, of terror, of hope. Because Jack Morgan, had just walked into a church and confessed everything, had offered to change his entire life, had asked permission instead of taking what he wanted. And her father, her stern, righteous father, had said yes. Maybe miracles really did happen in Redemption Creek. Maybe redemption wore boots and carried shame, and showed up anyway, hat in hand, willing to try. And maybe, just maybe, the most dangerous thing you could do was choose to believe in someone, including yourself. Sarah Beth Winchester stood up, wiped her tears, and walked back into that church. Papa looked up from his pew, his eyes red-rimmed. "I heard everything," she said. "I figured you did." "Thank you, Papa." His face crumpled slightly. "Don't thank me yet, daughter. Because if that man breaks your heart, we'll both have to live with the fact that I gave him permission to try." Sarah crossed to him and kissed his cheek. "He won't break my heart." "How can you be sure?" "Because he's the only person who's ever asked me what I wanted, and that's worth everything." Papa pulled her into a fierce hug. "Then God be with you both. You're going to need it." Outside, the sun climbed higher over Redemption Creek, and somewhere Jack Morgan sat on his horse, looking back at the church, his hands shaking and his heart full of something that felt dangerously close to hope. The story was just beginning, but for the first time in either of their lives, it felt like it might have a chance at a happy ending. Sunday dinner at the Winchester house had never felt so heavy. Sarah set the table with trembling hands. Mama moved through the kitchen like a woman preparing for battle, her jaw tight, her movements sharp. Papa sat in his chair, reading scripture, but his eyes kept drifting to the window, watching for Jack's arrival. "He'll be here," Sarah said quietly. Papa grunted. "He better be. Man makes promises in a church, he keeps them." The knock came at exactly noon. 3 firm raps that seemed to echo through the entire house. Sarah moved to answer, but Mama caught her arm. "I'll get it. You sit." Jack filled the doorway, his hat already in his hands, his Sunday best pressed and clean. He'd shaved. His hair was combed back. He looked like he was trying to shrink himself, make himself less intimidating, but there was no hiding what he was. "Mrs. Winchester." His voice was respectful, careful. "Thank you for having me." Mama's face was stone. "Mr. Morgan." She stepped aside to let him in. Jack's eyes found Sarah immediately across the room, and something in his expression softened. Relief, maybe, or fear. Sarah couldn't tell. "Reverend." Jack crossed to where Papa sat and extended his hand. Papa stood slowly, measuring Jack with his eyes before accepting the handshake. "You're on time. That's a start." "Yes, sir." "Sit. Dinner's ready." They sat. Jack took the chair across from Sarah, keeping the width of the table between them. Mama brought out roasted chicken and potatoes and green beans. The food smelled good, but Sarah's stomach was twisted too tight to eat. Papa said grace. His prayer went on longer than usual, heavy with requests for wisdom and protection and righteous guidance. When he finally said amen, the tension at the table was thick enough to cut. "So, Mr. Morgan." Papa carved the chicken with deliberate precision. "Tell us about your ranch." Jack cleared his throat. "I've got 200 acres about 5 miles north of town. Bought it 5 years ago. Built the house myself. Run about 50 head to cattle right now, hoping to expand to 100 by next year." "That's ambitious." "Yes, sir, but the land can support it. Good water, good grass." "And you work it alone?" "Mostly. I hire a hand during calving season, but otherwise it's just me." Mama passed the potatoes without looking at Jack. "Must be lonely." "It is, ma'am. But I prefer it that way. Or I did, until recently." Sarah's cheeks flushed. Under the table she gripped her napkin. Papa set down his fork. "My daughter tells me you've been honest with her about your past. About the women you've hurt." Jack's jaw tightened. "Yes, sir. I won't lie to her or to you. I've made mistakes, hurt people I didn't mean to hurt. But I've never forced anyone, and I've never lied about what I am." "And what are you, Mr. Morgan?" A man trying to be better than he was. The answer hung in the air. Papa studied Jack's face for a long moment, then nodded slowly and picked up his fork. Eat. Food's getting cold. They ate in silence for several minutes. Sarah barely tasted anything. She kept glancing at Jack, who was cutting his chicken into precise small bites, eating slowly, carefully, like he was afraid of doing something wrong. Finally, Mama spoke. Sarah Beth says you asked her what she dreams about. Jack looked up surprised. Yes, ma'am. And what did she say? She said she didn't know, that she'd never let herself dream about anything except being good. Mama's face flickered with something pain recognition. And what did you tell her? I told her that's not a dream, that's a cage. Jack's voice was quiet, but firm. And I told her she deserves to figure out what she wants, not just what everyone else expects her to be. You think we've caged our daughter? I think you've protected her. There's a difference. But protection can become a cage if it goes on too long. Papa leaned back in his chair. You're not wrong, but you're also not the one who'll suffer if something goes wrong. Sarah Beth will. Her reputation, her future, her standing in this community. Those are the stakes here, Mr. Morgan. I know, sir. That's why I'm here instead of meeting her in secret. That's why I'm asking permission instead of taking what I want. Because I respect her too much to ruin her. Words are easy, Mama said. Actions are harder. Yes, ma'am. That's why I'm willing to prove myself. 6 weeks of proper courting. Whatever rules you set, I'll follow them. Papa exchanged a glance with Mama. Something passed between them, a conversation without words, the kind married people have after decades together. All right, Papa said finally. Here are the rules. You may call on Sarah Beth twice a week. Sunday after church and one evening during the week. All visits will be here in this house with either myself or Mrs. Winchester present. No private meetings. No walks alone. No touching beyond a handshake. You will treat my daughter with absolute respect, or this arrangement ends immediately. Understood? Yes, sir. And at the end of 6 weeks, if you've conducted yourself honorably, I'll allow you to propose. If Sarah Beth accepts, we'll discuss marriage. If she refuses, you'll walk away and never bother her again. Agreed? Jack's throat worked. Agreed. Good. Papa picked up his fork again. Now finish your dinner and tell me about your plans for that ranch. The rest of the meal passed easier. Jack talked about breeding lines and water rights and plans to build a bigger barn. Papa asked intelligent questions. Mama listened with a skeptical face. And Sarah sat there watching this strange, impossible thing unfold, her father and the town scandal, sitting at the same table, discussing cattle like civilized men. When dinner ended, Mama shooed the men into the parlor, while she and Sarah cleaned up. He's not what I expected, Mama admitted quietly as they washed dishes. What did you expect? A brute, a charmer, something obviously wrong. She handed Sarah a plate to dry. But he's just a man. A careful, polite man who's trying very hard not to make a mistake. Does that change how you feel about him? Mama was quiet for a long time. It doesn't change the facts. He's still hurt women. He's still dangerous for you. But, she paused. But maybe your father's right. Maybe 6 weeks will prove what kind of man he really is. In the parlor, Papa was giving Jack a different kind of test. My daughter is precious to me, Mr. Morgan. She's my only living child. You understand what that means? Yes, sir. I don't think you do. Papa's voice was low and tense. When her brother drowned, something broke in this house. Sarah Beth spent the next 12 years trying to be perfect enough to make up for the child we lost. She's carried that weight her whole life. And I let her because I was too broken to tell her she didn't have to. Jack said nothing, just listened. So when I look at you, I don't just see a man courting my daughter. I see someone who could either set her free from that burden or crush her under a new one. Which will it be? I can't promise I won't hurt her, Reverend. Jack's voice was raw with honesty. "I'm human. I'll make mistakes. But I can promise I'll never make her feel like she has to be perfect to be worthy of love. Because she already is. Just as she is." Papa's eyes filled with tears. He turned away quickly, clearing his throat. That's a good answer, son." "I mean it, sir." "I believe you do." Papa turned back. "But believing something and living it are different things. So you'll forgive me if I watch you closely these next 6 weeks. I'd be disappointed if you didn't." When Sarah and Mama returned to the parlor, Papa was standing at the window, and Jack was sitting stiffly on the sofa, looking like he was afraid to breathe wrong. "It's time for Mr. Morgan to leave," Papa announced. Jack stood immediately. "Yes, sir. Thank you for dinner, Mrs. Winchester. It was excellent." Mama nodded curtly. "You're welcome." Sarah walked him to the door, acutely aware of 3 sets of eyes watching them. "Tuesday evening," Jack said quietly. "I'll be here at 6. I'll be waiting." His hand twitched like he wanted to touch her, but remembered the rules. Instead, he just nodded and put his hat on. "Sarah Beth." "Jack." He left. Sarah closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. Behind her, Papa said, "Well, that wasn't as terrible as I expected." "He's still dangerous," Mama countered. "Maybe, but he's also honest. And that's more than most men offer." Sarah turned to face her parents. "Thank you, both of you, for giving him a chance." Papa crossed to her and cupped her face in his rough hands. "Don't thank us yet, daughter. This is just the beginning. And beginnings are always easier than middles or ends." But Sarah didn't care about the middle or the end. All she cared about was that Jack would be back on Tuesday. That she'd get to see him, talk to him, learn him. That maybe, just maybe, this impossible thing had a chance. Tuesday came slowly. Sarah changed her dress 3 times before Jack arrived. Mama watched with knowing eyes but said nothing. When Jack knocked at 6, Sarah made herself count to 10 before opening the door. He stood on the porch, holding wildflowers, black-eyed Susans, and prairie roses clearly picked from the roadside on his way into town. His face was nervous. "I know these aren't fancy," he said, "but I thought they're perfect." Sarah took them, her fingers brushing his for just a second. The touch sent electricity up her arm. Mama appeared behind her. "Mr. Morgan, come in. I'll be in the kitchen if you need me." Which meant she'd be listening to every word. Jack knew it too, but he just nodded respectfully. They sat in the parlor, a careful 3 feet between them on the sofa. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jack cleared his throat. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Proper courting. This isn't my usual." "It's not mine either," Sarah said quickly. "I've never been courted at all." That seemed to relax him slightly. "Then I guess we'll figure it out together. Tell me about your week." So he did. About a calf-born breech that he'd delivered at 2 in the morning. About fixing a fence that coyotes had torn down. About the way sunrise looked over his land, painting everything gold and red. Sarah told him about the church ladies' quilting circle, about Mrs. Abernathy's terrible gossip about reading to old Mr. Henderson, who was going blind. The conversation flowed easier than it should have for 2 people sitting in a parlor with a chaperone. They talked about books Jack loved, Twain Sarah preferred Alcott. About music, neither could carry a tune. About stupid things that made them laugh. An hour passed like minutes. When Jack stood to leave, Sarah walked him to the door again. "Same time Sunday?" he asked. "Same time Sunday." This time, he did touch her, just his fingertips against her hand, so brief she might have imagined it. But the look in his eyes told her she hadn't. "I'm trying real hard to follow your father's rules," he said quietly, low enough that Mama wouldn't hear. "But it's harder than I thought it'd be." "Good," Sarah whispered back, "because I want you to want to break them." His breath caught. "You're going to be the death of me, Sarah Beth Winchester." "I certainly hope not." He left smiling, and Sarah closed the door, feeling like she was floating. Mama appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. "You're falling for him." It wasn't a question. "Yes," Sarah admitted. "I am." "Does that scare you?" "Terrifies me." Mama pulled her into a hug. "Good. Love should terrify you. If it doesn't, it's not real." The weeks fell into a pattern. Jack came Sunday after church and Tuesday evenings. They sat in the parlor under Mama's watchful eye and talked about everything and nothing. They discovered they both loved thunderstorms and hated winter. That Jack could recite poetry and Sarah could do complicated math in her head. That they'd both lost siblings, young Sarah's brother to drowning, Jack's sister to scarlet fever. Each visit, the 3 feet between them on the sofa felt like 3 miles. Sarah found herself hyper-aware of every movement Jack made, the way his hands gripped his knees when he was nervous, the way his voice dropped when he was being serious, the way he looked at her like she was something precious and terrifying all at once. And the town noticed. By the second week, everyone in Redemption Creek knew Jack Morgan was courting the preacher's daughter. The gossip was vicious. "Poor girl doesn't know what she's getting into," Mrs. Abernathy told anyone who'd listen. "Reverend's lost his mind letting that man near his daughter," Mr. Chen said, shaking his head. Even the church ladies whispered during quilting circle. Sarah heard every word, saw every pitying look. But Jack weathered it without flinching. When people stared at them after church, he just tipped his hat. When men made crude comments at the saloon, he ignored them. When Mrs. Abernathy cornered him outside the general store and told him he was going to hell, he just said, "Yes, ma'am, probably so." On the 4th Tuesday, Sarah asked him how he could stand it. "I've lived with people's opinions my whole life," Jack said. "My father drank and hit, so people said I'd turn out the same. I grew bigger than other boys, so they called me a monster. I hurt women accidentally, so they said I did it on purpose. None of it was ever true, but truth doesn't matter to people who've already made up their minds. Doesn't it hurt? Sure, but not as much as giving up on you would hurt." He looked at her directly. "I can handle gossip, Sarah Beth. What I can't handle is the thought of walking away from the best thing that's ever happened to me." Across the room, Mama made a small sound. When Sarah glanced at her, Mama's eyes were suspiciously bright. By the 5th week, something shifted. The town's gossip hadn't stopped, but it had changed tone. Because Jack showed up every Sunday and Tuesday without fail. Because he was unfailingly polite to everyone, even those who insulted him. Because he sat in church next to the Winchesters and sang hymns off-key and never once looked at Sarah with anything but respect. "He's really trying," one of the church ladies admitted. "Hasn't put a foot wrong in over a month," Mr. Chen observed. Even Mrs. Abernathy had to admit grudgingly that Jack Morgan was conducting himself like a gentleman. But Sarah could feel the tension building. Every Tuesday, every Sunday, the space between them felt more charged. The accidental brush of fingers when passing a book. The moment their eyes met and held too long. The way Jack's voice went rough when he said her name. They were following the rules, but the rules were killing them both. On the 6th Sunday, the final Sunday before the 6 weeks ended, Papa pulled Jack aside after dinner. "Walk with me." They went outside, leaving Sarah and Mama to clean up. Through the kitchen window, Sarah watched them pace the yard. Papa's hands clasped behind his back. Jack's head bowed as he listened. "What do you think they're talking about?" Sarah asked. Mama didn't look up from the dishes. "Whether Jack Morgan is worthy of proposing to you." Sarah's hands stilled in the wash water. "And what do you think Papa will say?" "I think your father sees something in that man that surprises him, maybe even reminds him of himself when he was young. Papa was never like Jack. No, your father was angry, lost, looking for something to believe in." Mama handed Sarah a plate. "Jack Morgan's looking for the same thing, and he thinks he's found it in you. Is that bad?" "I don't know yet." Mama's voice was soft. "But I'm starting to think maybe it's not." Outside, Papa and Jack stopped walking. Papa said something, and Jack's whole body went rigid. Then Jack nodded slowly, and Papa clapped him on the shoulder. When they came back inside, both men's faces were unreadable. "Tuesday evening," Papa said to Jack. "Come at 5 instead of 6. "Yes, sir." After Jack left, Sarah cornered her father. "What did you say to him?" Papa's face softened. "I asked him if he loved you. He said yes. I asked him if he understood what that meant, the responsibility, the sacrifice, the commitment. He said yes. Then I told him Tuesday was his chance to prove it." "What does that mean?" "It means if he shows up Tuesday with a ring and a proposal, I'll give him my blessing." Papa pulled Sarah into his arms. "But the choice is still yours, daughter. You understand that I can approve him all day long. But if you say no, that's the end of it. No pressure, no expectations, just your choice." Sarah buried her face in her father's chest and cried. Relief, terror, joy. It all hit at once. "I love him, Papa." "I know you do, sweetheart. I know." Tuesday took forever to arrive. Sarah couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything except what would happen at 5 o'clock. When the knock came, her heart nearly stopped. Jack stood on the porch in his Sunday best, his face pale but determined. In his hands, he held a small wooden box. "Sarah Beth," his voice was rough, "I need to speak with you." Papa and Mama were already in the parlor sitting together on the far side of the room. Sarah sat on the sofa and Jack knelt in front of her, not beside her, in front of her, on his knees. "I practiced this," he said, "had a whole speech ready, but now I'm here and I can't remember any of it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "So I'll just say this plain." Jack opened the wooden box. Inside was a simple gold band with a single small diamond. "I'm not a good man, Sarah Beth. I've made mistakes, hurt people, lived rough and hard, and mostly alone. But you make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be better. And I love you not because you're pretty or good or pure, but because you see me and you're not afraid. Because you ask questions nobody else asks. Because you're brave enough to want something for yourself instead of just being what everyone expects." He took a shaky breath. "So I'm asking you in front of your parents and God and whoever else is listening, will you marry me? Will you take a chance on a broken man who's trying to fix himself? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you?" Sarah couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. Jack's face crumpled with fear. "If you need time to think about it." "Yes." The word came out choked but clear. "Yes. Yes, Jack. Yes, I'll marry you." He surged up and pulled her into his arms, lifting her off the sofa. For a moment, he held her tight, his face buried in her hair, his whole body shaking. Then he remembered where he was and set her down quickly, stepping back. "Sorry, I forgot the rules." "The rules just changed," Papa said gruffly. He stood and crossed to them, extending his hand to Jack. "Welcome to the family, son." Jack shook his hand, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." "You better not. Because if you hurt her—" "You'll kill me. I know, sir, and I deserve it." Mama was crying openly now. She pulled Sarah into a fierce hug. "Are you sure, sweetheart? Really sure? I've never been more sure of anything." "Then God be with you both." Jack slipped the ring onto Sarah's finger. It fit perfectly. She stared at it, this impossible thing, proof that she'd chosen something for herself. Proof that maybe love wasn't about being perfect, but about being brave enough to be real. "How long of an engagement?" Papa asked. Jack looked at Sarah. "However long she wants." 3 months, Sarah said immediately. "I don't want to wait longer than that." Mama laughed through her tears. 3 months to plan a wedding, Lord help us. "We'll help," Jack said. "I can build whatever you need, paint, fix, whatever." "What you can do," Papa said, "is take my daughter for a walk, properly. With my blessing. Sarah's heart leaped. Really? Really? You're engaged now. Some new rules apply. Papa looked at Jack sternly. But not all the old ones are gone. You understand? Yes, sir. Completely. So Sarah and Jack walked. For the first time in 6 weeks, they walked alone together through the streets of Redemption Creek. People stared. Of course they stared. But Sarah didn't care anymore. Jack held her hand, their first real touch in weeks. That wasn't a quick brush of fingers. His hand was rough and warm and large enough to make hers disappear completely. I can't believe you said yes, he said quietly. I can't believe you asked. I was terrified you'd say no. I was terrified you wouldn't ask. They walked to the creek, their creek, and sat on the rock where they'd spent so many mornings talking. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and red. Are you scared? Jack asked. Terrified. Me too. He squeezed her hand. But I'm more scared of losing you than I am of anything else. Sarah turned to face him. Jack, I need you to understand something. I know what people say about you. I know about the women, about the pain, about all of it. And I'm not afraid. You should be. Maybe. But I'm not. She touched his face the first time she'd touched him like that. His skin was warm, his jaw rough with stubble. Because I trust you, and because I'd rather take the risk and find out than spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Jack closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. I'm going to spend every day of the rest of my life making sure you never regret this. I know you will. He opened his eyes, and the look there took her breath away. Want, love, devotion, fear. It was all there, naked and raw. Can I kiss you? He asked. I thought you'd never ask. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull back. But Sarah didn't pull back. She met him halfway. The kiss was soft, careful. His lips barely brushed hers, like he was afraid of breaking her. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, but those 3 seconds changed everything. When they pulled apart, Jack was breathing hard. We should get you home. We should. Neither of them moved. Sarah Beth, if we don't leave right now, I'm going to kiss you again. And if I kiss you again, I don't know if I'll be able to stop. Then let's go. They walked back, holding hands, both of them trembling, both of them aware that they'd crossed some invisible line. The next 3 months would be torture being engaged, but not married, wanting, but not having, waiting for permission to fully be together. But they'd waited this long. They could wait a little longer. When Jack left her at the parsonage door, he kissed her hand. 3 months? 3 months? She echoed. I love you, Sarah Beth Winchester. I love you too, Jack Morgan. He walked away, and Sarah went inside to find Mama and Papa waiting. Well? Mama asked. Sarah held up her hand, the ring catching the lamplight. We're getting married. Papa pulled her into a hug. Then we better start planning, because knowing you, those 3 months are going to fly by. He was right. The next 3 months were a blur of wedding preparations and gossip and growing anticipation. Sarah spent her days helping Mama sew her wedding dress, simple white cotton, with lace at the collar. Jack spent his days building furniture for their future home, a table, chairs, a bed frame that made Sarah blush just thinking about it. They saw each other 3 times a week now, always with a chaperone, but the rules had relaxed slightly. They could hold hands. They could sit close. They could kiss goodbye, one quick kiss, nothing more. But the tension grew with each passing week. Every touch felt electric. Every kiss left them both shaking. Sarah had never felt so alive and so frustrated all at once. The town's opinion shifted gradually. Some people still whispered, but others started to see what Sarah's father had seen, a man trying desperately to be worthy. Jack helped raise a new barn for the Johnsons when their old one burned. He fixed Mrs. Chen's wagon wheel for free. He sat with old Mr. Henderson and read to him when Sarah couldn't. Slowly, reluctantly, Redemption Creek began to accept that maybe Jack Morgan wasn't the monster they'd thought. 2 weeks before the wedding, Nancy Carmichael showed up at the parsonage. Sarah answered the door to find the woman standing there twisting her hands nervously. Nancy was pretty in a faded sort of way, married to Tom Jenkins for 3 years now. "Miss Winchester, I know you're engaged now, so—" Nancy stopped, took a breath. "Can I speak with you?" "Please." Sarah let her in. They sat in the parlor alone because Mama was at the market. "I heard you're marrying Jack Morgan," Nancy said. "Yes. I needed to tell you something about what happened between us." Nancy's face was pale. "The story people tell isn't true. Jack didn't force me. He didn't trick me. I came to him and I begged him, and he said no 3 times before I wore him down." Sarah waited. It did hurt. He wasn't lying about that, but he stopped the second I asked him to. He was gentle as he could be, and afterward he made sure I was all right before he'd let me leave. Nancy's eyes filled with tears. I was the one who spread the rumors. I was scared Tom would find out, scared my reputation would be ruined. So I lied and said Jack forced me. And he never once defended himself. He just took the blame and let me go on with my life. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because Jack Morgan deserves someone who knows he's not the monster this town made him out to be. Nancy stood. He's a good man, better than most. And I'm sorry I ever made people think different. After Nancy left, Sarah sat alone in the parlor for a long time. She'd believed Jack when he told her the truth. But hearing it confirmed by someone who'd heard him, it changed something. That evening she told Jack what Nancy had said. He just shrugged. "Doesn't change anything." "It changes everything. She lied about you for 3 years." And she was scared. I understood that then, and I understand it now. He squeezed her hand. "I'm not angry at Nancy Sarah Beth. I'm angry at myself for not being more careful, for not protecting her better. That's on me, not her." And that's when Sarah knew for certain she was marrying the right man. The wedding was set for Saturday, 3 days away. Sarah could barely sleep. Her body felt like it was vibrating with anticipation and nerves and want. Friday night, Mama sat her down for the talk. "Tomorrow night you'll be with your husband," Mama began awkwardly. "I know, Mama. And there are things you need to know about what happens between a man and a woman." Sarah's face burned. "I have some idea." Knowing in theory and experiencing it are different things. Mama took her hand. "It might hurt the first time. That's normal. But Jack seems like he'll be gentle, patient. Let him know if something doesn't feel right." "Mama, I appreciate this, but—" "And remember, Sarah Beth, that what happens in your marriage bed is between you and your husband and God. Nobody else. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed of wanting your husband or enjoying what you share together." That made Sarah look up. "Did someone make you feel ashamed?" Mama's face went sad. "My mother told me it was a wife's duty to endure, that good women didn't enjoy it. It took me years to realize she was wrong. Years of missing out on something beautiful because I thought wanting it made me wicked." She squeezed Sarah's hand. "Don't make my mistake. Your body is a gift, not a burden. And Jack clearly loves you. Let yourself love him back in all the ways that matter." Sarah hugged her mother tight. "Thank you, Mama." "You're welcome, sweetheart. Now go get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day." But Sarah didn't sleep. She lay awake all night staring at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow. About standing in front of the whole town and promising herself to Jack. About the wedding night that would follow. She was terrified. She couldn't wait. And somewhere across town, Jack Morgan wasn't sleeping either. Saturday morning came too fast and not fast enough. Sarah woke before dawn, her stomach twisted in knots. Today, she'd marry Jack Morgan. Today, her life would change forever. Today, she'd stop being the preacher's sheltered daughter and become someone's wife. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Mama knocked softly and entered with a cup of tea. Couldn't sleep either? Not a wink. That's normal. Mama sat on the edge of the bed. I didn't sleep the night before my wedding either. Kept thinking about everything that would change. Did you regret it marrying Papa? Mama was quiet for a moment. Not regret, no, but it was hard. Marriage is always hard even when it's good. You're taking two people who've lived separate lives and trying to make them fit together. There's friction, adjustments, things you don't expect. You're not making me feel better. I'm not trying to. Mama smiled gently. I'm trying to prepare you. Because tonight won't be perfect, Sarah Beth. It might be awkward or uncomfortable or not what you imagined. But that doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It just means you're human. Sarah sipped her tea, letting the warmth settle her stomach. I love him, Mama. I know you do. That's the only reason I'm letting you walk down that aisle today. The morning passed in a blur of preparation. Mama helped Sarah into her wedding dress, fastening each tiny button up the back. The dress fit perfectly, hugging her waist and falling in soft folds to the floor. Sarah barely recognized herself in the mirror. You look beautiful, Mama whispered, tears in her eyes. I look terrified. That too. Mama adjusted the lace at Sarah's collar. But Jack won't care. He'll just see you. Papa knocked on the door. Are you ready, daughter? Sarah took a deep breath. As I'll ever be. The church was packed. Every pew filled with townspeople who'd come to witness the scandal, the preacher's daughter marrying the man who'd ruined 3 women. Sarah could feel their eyes on her as she walked down the aisle on Papa's arm. But then she saw Jack standing at the altar and everyone else disappeared. He wore a black suit that strained slightly across his shoulders. His hair was combed back, his face freshly shaved. But it was his eyes that caught her, full of wonder and fear and love so intense it made her chest ache. Papa stopped at the altar and placed Sarah's hand in Jack's. His rough fingers closed around hers, trembling slightly. Take care of her, Papa said quietly. With my life, sir. Papa stepped back. Reverend Matthews from the neighboring town began the ceremony. Sarah barely heard the words. All she could focus on was Jack's hand holding hers. His eyes locked on her face, the way his throat worked when he swallowed. Do you, Jack Morgan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? I do. His voice was rough with emotion. And do you, Sarah Beth Winchester, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? Sarah's voice came out steady and clear. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride. Jack cupped her face in his large hands, so gentle, and kissed her softly. The church erupted in applause, some genuine, some polite, some skeptical. Sarah didn't care. She was married. She was Mrs. Jack Morgan now. The reception was held in the church hall. Tables laden with food music from a fiddle player, people congratulating them with varying degrees of sincerity. Mrs. Abernathy approached with pursed lips. Well, Mrs. Morgan, I hope you know what you've gotten yourself into. Jack's arm tightened around Sarah's waist, but she spoke before he could. I know exactly what I've gotten, Mrs. Abernathy. A good man who loves me. That's more than most people get. Mrs. Abernathy sniffed and walked away. Jack leaned down to whisper in Sarah's ear. I'm starting to think you don't need me to defend you. I never did, but I like that you want to. They danced their first dance as husband and wife. Jack was surprisingly graceful for such a large man, leading her through the steps with confidence. Sarah felt like she was floating. You're a good dancer, she said. My mother taught me, said every man should know how to dance, even if he never gets the chance. His voice was soft. I'm glad I finally got the chance. With me. Only ever with you. The sun was setting when they finally left the reception. Jack had borrowed a wagon decorated with ribbons by the church ladies. Their bags were already loaded. Sarah's trunk of clothes and personal items, Jack's packed supplies for the ranch. Papa pulled Jack aside one last time. Sarah watched them talk quietly, saw Papa grip Jack's shoulder, hard, saw Jack nod seriously. Then Papa came to Sarah. You're sure about this? I'm sure, Papa. He pulled her into a fierce hug. Then God go with you, daughter. And remember, if you need anything at all, you can always come home. I know. Mama was crying openly. She kissed Sarah's cheeks, straightened her collar one last time, whispered prayers over her. Be brave, sweetheart, and be yourself. That's all you need to be. Then Jack was helping her up onto the wagon seat, his hands strong around her waist. He climbed up beside her and took the reins. The townspeople gathered to wave them off, throwing rice and calling blessings and warnings in equal measure. As they pulled away from the church, Sarah looked back once. Mama and Papa stood together, Papa's arm around Mama's shoulders. They looked smaller, somehow, older. Sarah felt a pang of guilt. They'd lost their son years ago, and now their daughter was leaving too. But then Jack's hand found hers on the seat between them, and she turned forward. Toward her future. Toward whatever came next. The ride to Jack's ranch took an hour. They didn't talk much. The weight of what was coming hung between them, heavy and electric. Sarah's stomach fluttered with nerves. Her hands wouldn't stay still in her lap. Are you scared? Jack asked quietly. Yes. Me too. That surprised her. Why would you be scared? Because I don't want to hurt you. Because I've hurt every other woman I've been with, and the thought of hurting you makes me sick. His jaw tightened. Because you're my wife now, and I want this to be good for you, and I don't know if I can make that happen. Sarah squeezed his hand. We'll figure it out together. What if we can't? What if I'm too much for you? Then we'll find another way. Jack, look at me. She waited until he did. I married you knowing the risks, knowing what people said. I chose you anyway, so whatever happens tonight, we face it together. All right? He nodded, but his face was still tight with worry. The ranch appeared as the last light faded from the sky. The house was small but sturdy, built with Jack's own hands. Lamplight glowed in the windows. He must have asked someone to light them before the wedding. The barn stood behind the house, and beyond that the land stretched dark and endless. Jack helped Sarah down from the wagon, his hands lingering on her waist. Welcome home, Mrs. Morgan. The name sent a thrill through her. Mrs. Morgan. She was really married. Jack carried her trunk inside while Sarah stood in the doorway taking in her new home. The main room held a table, chairs, a stove, and a sofa. Everything simple and clean. Through an open door she could see the bedroom, a large bed with a quilt, a dresser, a wash basin. The bed. Her stomach flipped. I know it's not much, Jack said, setting down her trunk. But I built it all myself. And I can add on if you want. More rooms, whatever you need. It's perfect. And it was. Small, but solid. Safe. Jack moved to light the stove. I'll make us some coffee. Or tea if you prefer. And there's bread and cheese. You must be hungry. Jack. He stopped, his back to her. I'm not hungry, and I don't want coffee. He turned slowly. The lamplight caught his face, highlighting the fear there. Sarah Beth, we don't have to. We can wait. If you're not ready. I can sleep on the sofa tonight, and we can just... I don't want you to sleep on the sofa. The words hung between them. Jack's hands clenched at his sides. Are you sure? Because once we start, I don't know if I can. It's been 5 years since I've been with anyone, and even then I had to be so careful, and with you I want... He stopped breathing hard. "I just don't trust myself." Sarah crossed to him, her heart pounding. She'd never initiated anything physical between them. All their kisses had been his doing, careful and controlled. But this was different. They were married now. This was allowed. Expected even. She reached up and touched his face. His skin was warm, his jaw rough with the faint shadow of stubble. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch like a man starving for affection. "I trust you," she said. "Even if you don't trust yourself. I trust you, Jack." "You shouldn't." "Too bad. I do anyway." She stood on her toes and kissed him. Not the careful, chaste kisses they'd shared before. A real kiss. Her lips parting against his, her hands sliding into his hair. For a moment, Jack stayed frozen. Then something in him broke. He groaned and pulled her against him, his arms wrapping around her waist, lifting her slightly off the ground. The kiss deepened, became desperate. Sarah could feel his restraint crumbling, could feel the want he'd been holding back for months. It should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel powerful. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jack's eyes were dark and intense. "Bedroom. Now, before I lose what's left of my self-control and take you right here against the kitchen table." Sarah's face flamed, but she nodded. Jack took her hand and led her to the bedroom. He lit the lamp on the dresser, casting soft light across the bed. Then he turned to face her, his expression serious. "We're going to go slow," he said. "Real slow. And you're going to tell me if anything hurts or feels wrong. Promise me." "I promise." "I mean it, Sarah Beth. The second something doesn't feel good, you tell me, and we stop. I don't care if we're in the middle of just promise me you'll tell me." "I promise, Jack. I promise." He nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Then he reached for her, his movements deliberate and careful. His fingers found the first button at the back of her dress. "Is this all right?" "Yes." He unbuttoned slowly, each button a small eternity. Sarah's breath came faster. She'd never been undressed by anyone before, never been seen by anyone. The vulnerability of it made her tremble. Jack noticed. "We can stop." "Don't you dare." The dress fell away. Sarah stood in her chemise and petticoats, feeling exposed and cold and more alive than she'd ever felt. Jack's eyes traveled over her, his expression awed. "You're so beautiful," he said roughly. "So damn beautiful it hurts to look at you. Your turn." He pulled off his jacket and vest, then his shirt. Sarah had seen men without shirts before. Farm work in summer often meant bare chests. But seeing Jack's broad shoulders and muscled arms in the lamplight of their bedroom was different. This was hers now. Her husband. She reached out tentatively and placed her hand on his chest. His skin was warm, the muscle beneath hard. His heart hammered under her palm. "Sarah Beth, if you keep touching me like that, I'm not going to be able to go slow." "Maybe I don't want slow." "Yes, you do. Trust me." He took her hand and kissed her palm. "We've got all night. Hell, we've got the rest of our lives. There's no rush." But there was urgency in the way he kissed her again, pressing her back toward the bed. Sarah's legs hit the mattress, and she sat looking up at him. Jack knelt in front of her, his large hands on her knees. "Can I?" He gestured to her remaining clothes. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. He removed her shoes, then her stockings, his movements reverent. His hands were shaking. When he reached for the tie of her petticoats, he paused. "Last chance to change your mind." "I'm not changing my mind." The petticoats fell away. Then the chemise. And Sarah sat before her husband, completely bare, feeling more vulnerable than she'd ever felt in her life. Jack's breath caught. He didn't move, just looked at her, his eyes dark and hungry and tender all at once. "You're perfect," he whispered. "Absolutely perfect." Then he was kissing her again, his hands in her hair, on her back, exploring with a gentleness that seemed impossible for someone so large. Sarah gasped against his mouth, sensations flooding through her she'd never experienced before. Jack pulled back, his eyes searching her face. "Too much? Not enough," he groaned. "You're killing me, woman." He stood and removed the rest of his clothes. Sarah watched, her mouth going dry. She'd heard the whispers, the warnings about his size. Looking at him now, she understood why women had been afraid. He was built proportionally. Everything about him was large, his shoulders, his hands, his height. And yes, other parts too. Fear flickered through her. Jack saw it and immediately moved back. "We don't have to do this tonight." "Yes, we do. I want to." She reached for him. "I'm just nervous." "I know. So am I." He joined her on the bed, pulling the quilt over them both. "We'll take it as slow as you need. And if we have to stop, we stop. No shame in that." "Has that happened before?" "Having to stop?" "Twice. Once with Rebecca, she couldn't get past the fear, even though she wanted to try. And once with a woman in Texas who changed her mind halfway through. I stopped both times and made sure they were all right before they left." "What about Nancy?" Jack's face darkened. Nancy was determined. She got through it, but it hurt her badly enough that I felt sick for days after. That's when I decided I was done, that I'd rather be alone than hurt another woman like that. "I'm not going to get hurt." "You don't know that." "Neither do you." Sarah touched his face. "But I'd rather try and find out than spend our wedding night afraid. So show me Jack. Teach me. Help me understand what all those women couldn't forget about you." His eyes closed. "You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both." He kissed her again, slower this time, his hands gentle as they explored her body. Sarah had never been touched like this, never even touched herself like this. Every sensation was new and overwhelming, and somehow exactly right. Jack was patient, maddeningly patient. He took his time learning what made her gasp, what made her arch into his touch, what made her breath catch. And slowly, gradually, Sarah's fear melted into want. "Jack," she breathed. "Please." "Not yet. You're not ready yet." "I feel ready. Trust me. You're not." His voice was strained, rough with his own want. But he kept his movements slow, controlled, bringing her higher until Sarah thought she might break apart. When he finally moved over her, positioning himself between her legs, Sarah's heart hammered so hard she could hear it in her ears. "Look at me," Jack said. "Keep your eyes on me. If anything hurts you, tell me. Understand?" "I understand." He moved slowly, carefully, watching her face for any sign of pain. There was pressure, intense pressure, but not pain. Not yet. Sarah breathed through it, forcing herself to relax. "That's it," Jack murmured. "Just breathe. You're doing so good, Sarah Beth. So good." More pressure. Sarah gasped, her hands gripping his shoulders. "Hurt?" he asked, immediately stopping. "No, just a lot." "I know. I'm sorry. We can stop." "Don't stop. Please don't stop." He moved again, incrementally, giving her body time to adjust. Sarah felt stretched beyond what she thought possible, felt the burn of accommodation, felt fear and want and trust, all tangled together. "Almost there," Jack said, his voice strained. "Just a little more. You're doing perfect, sweetheart. So perfect." Then he was fully inside her, and Sarah couldn't breathe. The sensation was overwhelming, fullness and pressure and intimacy so complete it brought tears to her eyes. Jack stayed completely still, trembling with the effort of control. "Talk to me. Tell me what you're feeling." "Full," Sarah managed. "So full. And it burns a little, but not bad. Not like I thought." "Can I move?" "Yes. Slowly." He moved. Just the smallest movement, but it sent sensation flooding through Sarah that she'd never experienced before. She gasped, and Jack froze again. Good gasp or bad gasp? Good. That was definitely good. He moved again, establishing a slow, careful rhythm. Sarah's body began to adjust, the burn fading into something warmer, deeper. She found herself moving with him, learning his rhythm, discovering how her body fit with his. "That's it," Jack murmured against her neck. "You feel so good, Sarah Beth. So perfect. Like you were made for me." The words sent heat through her. She wrapped her arms around him, holding tight as he moved, as he loved her, as he proved, with his body, what he'd promised with his words. It wasn't perfect. It was awkward at times, adjusting positions, figuring out angles, learning each other. But it was real and raw and intimate in ways Sarah hadn't imagined. When Jack's movements became more urgent, less controlled, he pulled back to look at her. "I'm close. Really close. Are you all right?" "I'm all right. I'm more than all right." He groaned and buried his face in her neck, his body shuddering as he found his release. Sarah held him, feeling the weight of him, the heat of him, the trust of this moment. Afterward, Jack rolled to the side, pulling her with him, so she was tucked against his chest. His heart hammered under her ear. His breathing was ragged. "Did I hurt you?" he asked after a moment. "A little, but not bad. Not nearly as bad as I expected. I tried to be careful." "I know. I could feel how hard you were trying." She looked up at him. Was I? "Perfect. You were perfect." He kissed her forehead. "Better than I deserved." They lay tangled together, the lamp burning low, the night settling around them. Sarah felt different, somehow changed in ways she couldn't quite name. She'd crossed from girl to woman, from daughter to wife. The person she'd been that morning felt like a stranger now. "Are you all right?" Jack asked quietly. "I think so. Ask me again in the morning." "There's going to be blood," he said gently. "That's normal. And you'll be sore tomorrow, maybe for a few days. We don't have to do this again until you're ready." "What if I'm ready tomorrow?" His chest rumbled with laughter. "Then I'll consider myself the luckiest man alive." Sarah traced patterns on his chest. "Jack, what you said about the other women, about them not being able to forget you, I understand now." "Sarah Beth, I'm not saying that to make you feel bad. I'm just saying I understand. Because I don't think I'll ever forget this either. Not the pain or the fear or the intimacy or the way you made me feel safe even when I was terrified." Jack's arms tightened around her. "I love you. More than I've ever loved anything in my life. I love you too." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, the evidence of their union marking the sheets beneath them. Outside, the ranch settled into silence. The cattle lowed softly in their pen. The wind whispered through the grass. And in their small bedroom, Sarah Beth Morgan, no longer. Winchester dreamed of mornings at the creek and wildflowers, and a future that stretched endless and gold before her. Sarah woke to bright sunlight streaming through the window and an empty bed. For a moment, panic seized her. Where was Jack? Had he left? Had last night been a mistake? Then she heard sounds from the main room. The clatter of dishes, the smell of coffee brewing. She sat up carefully, wincing at the soreness between her legs. The sheets were stained with blood, not much, but enough to mark what had happened. She found her nightgown folded on the chair. When had Jack done that? And pulled it on. Her legs felt shaky as she walked to the doorway. Jack stood at the stove, fully dressed, making breakfast. He turned when he heard her, and his face lit up. "Morning, Mrs. Morgan?" "Morning?" Her voice came out shy. He crossed to her immediately. "How are you feeling?" "Sore." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was worth it." She touched his chest. "Why didn't you wake me?" "You needed sleep, and I figured you'd be tired after..." He cleared his throat. "After last night." Are you blushing? No. But his ears were red. Sarah laughed. The man who just took my virginity is blushing about breakfast conversation. Sarah Beth Winchester Morgan, you're going to be the death of me. I certainly hope not. I have plans for you. His eyes darkened. Plans? Many plans. Starting with you teaching me how to run this ranch, and ending with... She stood on her toes to whisper in his ear. Finding out if last night gets better with practice. Jack groaned. You can't say things like that when I'm trying to be a gentleman and let you recover. Maybe I don't want a gentleman. Maybe I want my husband. Your husband is trying very hard to remember that you need time to heal. My husband can try all he wants, but his wife has other ideas. She kissed him, and Jack melted into it, his hands coming up to cup her face. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Jack rested his forehead against hers. 3 days, he said. Give yourself 3 days to heal properly. Then I promise I'll show you everything you want to know. That's a long time. That's nothing compared to the months we already waited. He kissed her nose. Now sit down and eat breakfast. You need your strength. They ate together at the small table, making plans for the day, for the week, for their life together. Jack would teach her how to milk the cows, how to collect eggs, how to manage the ranch when he was out working the fence line. Sarah would turn this house into a home, would learn to cook on the cast iron stove, would make curtains for the windows. What about town? Sarah asked. When do we go back? Next Sunday for church. We'll face everyone together. They'll stare. Let them. We did nothing wrong. We got married proper, waited like we were supposed to. What happens in our home is nobody's business but ours. Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. I'm glad I married you, Jack Morgan. Even though it hurt. Even though. Because the hurt was temporary, but this... She gestured between them. This is forever. Jack's eyes got suspiciously bright. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. Forever sounds pretty damn good to me. They spent the day together, Jack showing Sarah around the ranch, introducing her to the cattle, teaching her the rhythms of this new life. Sarah discovered she liked the physical work, liked feeling useful and strong. She liked watching Jack move through his domain confident and capable. That night they lay in bed together, Sarah's head on Jack's chest. He traced lazy patterns on her arm, both of them tired from the day's work. Jack, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think we'll be happy? Really happy? He was quiet for a moment. I think happiness isn't something you find. It's something you build. Day by day, choice by choice. And I think if we keep choosing each other, keep being honest with each other, keep trying, even when it's hard, yeah, I think we'll be happy. That's a good answer. I'm full of good answers when you catch me at the right time. Sarah smiled in the darkness. Outside, coyotes called to each other across the prairie. The wind rattled the windows. But inside, wrapped in her husband's arms, Sarah felt safer than she'd ever felt in her life. She'd chosen this. Chosen him. Chosen courage over fear, want over propriety, love over safety. And lying there in the darkness, listening to Jack's heartbeat steady and strong beneath her ear, Sarah Beth Morgan knew she'd chosen right. The scandal of Redemption Creek had become her salvation. The man who'd ruined women had become the man who'd saved her, and the preacher's trembling daughter had become a woman who knew her own mind and heart and body. The story was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, the town's continued judgment, the struggle of building a life together, the 1,000 small adjustments of marriage. But for now, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Sarah closed her eyes and let sleep take her, dreaming of tomorrow and all the tomorrows that would follow. The 3 days Jack promised felt like 3 years. Sarah healed quickly, the soreness fading by the second day. But Jack kept his word, keeping his hands gentle, and his kisses brief. At night they lay together, and Sarah could feel the restraint in every muscle of his body, the careful way he held himself back. On the third night she'd had enough. "Jack." He was half asleep, his arm heavy across her waist. "It's been 3 days." His eyes opened. Even in the darkness, she could see the want there. "You sure you're ready?" "I've been ready since yesterday morning. You're the one making us wait." "I was trying to be considerate." "Consider this instead." She rolled to face him, pressing close. "Your wife wants you, right now, unless you'd prefer to keep being considerate." Jack groaned. "You're not playing fair." "I never agreed to play fair." This time was different. Sarah knew what to expect, knew how her body would respond. And Jack, freed from the fear of hurting her that first time, was less restrained. He showed her things she'd never imagined touched her in ways that made her forget her own name. Afterward, lying tangled and breathless, Sarah understood fully why those other women had never forgotten him. It wasn't just his size or his intensity. It was the way he paid attention, learned what she liked, adjusted when something didn't work. It was the way he made her feel seen and wanted and safe all at once. "Better than the first time?" Jack asked, his voice rough. "Much better. Is it always like this?" "I don't know. I've never had this before." Sarah propped herself up on her elbow. "What do you mean, you've been with other women?" "Not like this." He touched her face. "The others were just physical. Bodies meeting bodies. But with you, it's—" He struggled for words. "It's like my soul recognizes yours. Like we fit together in ways that go deeper than just flesh." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. "That's beautiful." "It's true." He pulled her close. "You're not just my wife, Sarah Beth. You're my home." They fell into a pattern over the next week. Days spent working the ranch together, Sarah learning quickly how to handle the animals, how to read weather, how to fix a fence post. Nights spent learning each other in different ways, discovering that intimacy had infinite variations. But Sunday came too soon, and with it, the return to Redemption Creek. Sarah dressed carefully in her Sunday best, her stomach churning with nerves. The whole town would be there. The whole town would judge whether their marriage was a success or a scandal continued. Jack noticed her hands shaking as she pinned her hat. "We don't have to go if you're not ready. We have to face them eventually." "True, but we can wait another week if you need to." Sarah straightened her spine. "No, let's go. Let them see that I'm happy. That you're a good husband, that they were wrong about us." Jack kissed her forehead. "That's my brave girl." The ride to town was tense. With each mile, Sarah's anxiety grew. What would people say? How would they look at her? Would they see the change in her, the way marriage had marked her? When they pulled up to the church, heads turned immediately. The congregation was gathering outside, and every eye fixed on them. Sarah heard the whispers start before Jack even helped her down from the wagon. "Well, she's still alive at least. Wonder if she's limping. Poor thing, probably can't walk straight." Sarah's face burned, but she held her head high. Jack's hand found the small of her back steady and reassuring. Mama and Papa waited by the church entrance. Mama pulled Sarah into a fierce hug. "How are you, sweetheart, really?" "I'm good, Mama. Really good." Mama searched her face, then nodded, satisfied with whatever she saw there. "You look happy." "I am." Papa shook Jack's hand, then pulled him aside while Mama led Sarah into the church. They sat in their usual pew, the Winchester pew, but now Sarah sat between her parents and her husband. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. The service felt endless. Reverend Matthews preached about forgiveness and new beginnings, and Sarah wondered if he'd chosen the topic deliberately. Several times she felt people staring, felt the weight of judgment and curiosity. But Jack's hand found hers during the final hymn, and Sarah realized she didn't care what they thought. She was happy. She was loved. That was enough. After the service, people approached cautiously, some genuinely kind, others clearly fishing for gossip. Mrs. Chen smiled warmly. "Marriage suits you, Mrs. Morgan. You're glowing." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. And you, Mr. Morgan, are looking well. Ranch keeping you busy?" "Yes, ma'am, though it's easier now with help." He looked at Sarah with such open affection that even Mrs. Chen's skeptical face softened. Mrs. Abernathy was less subtle. "So, Mrs. Morgan, how are you finding married life?" "Everything you expected." The question was loaded with implication. Sarah met her gaze steadily. "It's better than I expected, Mrs. Abernathy. My husband is kind and patient and treats me with respect. I'm very fortunate." Well, time will tell, I suppose." After she walked away, Jack leaned down to whisper, "I'm kind and patient, am I? Most of the time. And the other times?" Sarah's face heated. "The other times are none of Mrs. Abernathy's business." Jack's laugh was low and warm. Several people turned to stare, surprised to hear joy from the notorious Jack Morgan. Lunch at the parsonage felt more relaxed than the wedding dinner had been. Mama fussed over Sarah, making sure she ate enough. Papa and Jack discussed cattle prices and weather patterns. It felt almost normal. Until Papa asked the question Sarah had been dreading. "So when can we expect grandchildren?" Sarah choked on her water. Jack's ears went red. Mama swatted Papa's arm. "Josiah, that's not appropriate dinner conversation." "Why not?" "They're married. It's a natural question." "It's also private," Jack said carefully. "But to answer your question, Reverend, we're not rushing anything. We're still getting used to being married." "Fair enough," Papa nodded. "Just know that whenever it happens, we'll be happy. This house has been too quiet since Sarah Beth left." After lunch, Jack and Sarah walked through town before heading home. They stopped at the general store for supplies, enduring more stares and whispers. But Sarah noticed something had changed. The whispers were less vicious now, more curious. People were watching to see if the marriage would last, if Jack would prove himself worthy. At the mercantile, old Mr. Patterson rang up their purchases. "Heard you two are doing well out at the ranch." "We are, sir," Jack said. "Good. Good." Mr. Patterson wrapped their items. "I'll admit I had my doubts about you, Morgan. But any man who sits through church every Sunday and doesn't run when the preacher starts talking about hell has some fortitude." Jack cracked a smile. "Thank you, sir. I think." On the ride home, Sarah felt lighter. They'd faced the town and survived. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it was a start. "That wasn't so bad," she said. "We got lucky. Mrs. Abernathy could have been worse." "She's always worse when she tries to be polite." Jack laughed and pulled her close on the wagon seat. "I love you. You know that." "I know. I love you too." The next few weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. Sarah threw herself into making the ranch house a home. She sewed curtains for the windows, planted a vegetable garden, learned to bake bread in the temperamental stove. Jack taught her to ride to rope, to read the cattle's moods. They worked together from dawn to dusk, their bodies learning the language of partnership. And at night, they learned other languages, discovering that intimacy deepened with time and trust. Sarah had never been happier. But trouble came the way it always does when you least expect it. It started with a letter. Sarah was hanging laundry when Jack rode in from town, his face grim. He dismounted and handed her an envelope. The handwriting was unfamiliar. "What is it?" "Read it." Sarah opened the letter with shaking hands. The words blurred at first, then came into sharp focus. "Mr. Morgan, you don't know me, but I know about you. I know what you did to my sister Rebecca 5 years ago. I know you ruined her and left her unable to marry. I'm coming to Redemption Creek to settle accounts. You'll see me soon enough. Thomas Hartley." Sarah's blood went cold. Rebecca's brother. "Yeah." Jack's jaw was tight. "I didn't know she had a brother. She never mentioned him. What does he want? What do you think? Revenge? Justice?" Maybe just to beat me senseless. Can't say I blame him. Jack, you didn't do anything wrong. You stopped when she asked. You didn't hurt her on purpose. Doesn't matter. I still hurt her. And if I were her brother, I'd want blood too. Sarah gripped his arm. What are we going to do? We're not doing anything. I'm going to meet with him, let him say his piece, and hopefully convince him there's nothing to settle. And if you can't convince him, Jack's face was bleak. Then I'll take whatever he dishes out, because fighting back would just make things worse. You can't just let him hurt you. Watch me. He cupped her face. Sarah Beth, I've spent 5 years carrying guilt for what happened with Rebecca. If her brother needs to take a swing at me to feel better, I'll give him that chance. It's the least I owe her. You don't owe anyone the right to hurt you. Maybe not, but I'm giving it anyway. 3 days later, Thomas Hartley arrived in Redemption Creek. He came to the ranch at noon, riding a gray horse and carrying a rifle across his saddle. He was younger than Sarah expected, maybe 25, with Rebecca's same dark hair and sharp features. Jack walked out to meet him, leaving Sarah on the porch despite her protests. Mr. Hartley. Morgan. Thomas dismounted but kept his hand near his rifle. I'm here about my sister. I figured. I'm sorry for what happened with Rebecca. Truly sorry. Sorry doesn't fix what you broke. Thomas's voice shook with fury. She came home crying that night, said you'd hurt her so bad she could barely walk, said she'd bled for days after, and then she couldn't look at men the same way again. 3 years she's been damaged because of you. Jack's face was pale but steady. I didn't mean to hurt her. I warned her beforehand. I tried to be careful. But you're right, I should have said no more firmly. Should have refused outright instead of giving in when she insisted. You should have kept your hands off her entirely. You're right, I should have. The admission seemed to deflate some of Thomas's rage. He'd clearly expected Jack to defend himself, to argue. The agreement threw him. So what, you just admit it, and that makes it okay? No. It doesn't make it okay at all. Nothing makes it okay. Jack took a step closer. But I can tell you that I've spent 5 years trying to be better. I stopped being with women after Nancy Carmichael because I couldn't stand hurting anyone else. I bought this ranch and worked it alone because I figured that was what I deserved. And when I met my wife... He glanced at Sarah on the porch. I almost walked away because I was terrified of doing to her what I'd done to your sister. But you married her anyway. I did, because she chose me despite knowing everything, and because I love her enough to try every day to be the man she deserves instead of the man I was. Thomas was quiet, his hand still near his rifle. Rebecca's engaged now, to a good man who treats her gentle, but she still has nightmares sometimes, still flinches when he touches her certain ways. Jack's face crumpled. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix nightmares. No, it doesn't. Jack straightened. So, if you came here to beat me senseless, I won't fight back. If you came to shoot me, I'd ask that you do it away from my wife so she doesn't have to see. And if you came for something else, tell me what you need and I'll try to give it. Sarah couldn't stay silent anymore. She walked off the porch, ignoring Jack's warning look. Mr. Hartley, I'm Sarah Beth Morgan, Jack's wife. Thomas's eyes softened slightly. Ma'am, I know what happened with your sister. Jack told me everything before we married, and I want you to know he's not the monster you think he is. He's a good man who made a mistake, a man who's carried that guilt every day since, a man who's spent 5 years trying to be better. You're defending him because you're his wife. I'm defending him because it's true, and because I know what it's like to be told you're not capable of making your own choices. Sarah's voice was firm. Your sister chose to be with Jack. She insisted even when he said no. That doesn't make what happened okay, but it also doesn't make Jack a monster. It makes him human. Thomas looked between them, his fury gradually draining into something more complicated. Finally he spoke. Rebecca asked me not to come here, said it was done and in the past and I should let it go. But I couldn't. I needed to see the man who hurt her. Needed to know he understood what he'd done. I understand, Jack said quietly. Believe me, I understand. And now that I'm here looking at you with your wife, seeing how you live. Thomas shook his head. I don't know what I expected. Some brute who didn't care. Some monster without conscience. But you're just a man who made a mistake and is trying to live with it. That's all I am. Just a man trying to be better. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Rebecca would probably kill me for saying this, but I think she'd want me to tell you she's okay now, getting better. The nightmares are less frequent, and her fiancé is patient with her, so maybe you can stop carrying all that guilt. Jack shook his hand, his eyes suspiciously bright. Thank you. That means more than you know. Just, Thomas paused, don't hurt this one all right. She seems like a good woman, and she clearly loves you for some fool reason. I won't. I swear on my life I won't. Thomas mounted his horse and tipped his hat to Sarah. Ma'am, take care of him. God knows somebody should. Then he rode away, leaving Jack and Sarah standing in the yard. Jack turned to her, and Sarah saw tears streaming down his face. She pulled him into her arms, holding tight as he shook with silent sobs. It's okay, she whispered. It's okay now. Rebecca's okay. She's getting married. She's healing. I know. And so are you. They stood like that for a long time, the sun hot on their backs, the cattle lowing in the distance. When Jack finally pulled back, his face was red but peaceful. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. He laughed wetly. Best thing that ever happened to me. That night, they lay in bed, and Jack told her stories about his childhood that he'd never shared before. About his mother, who died protecting him from his father's fists. About his sister who died of scarlet fever when she was 8 and Jack was 12. About the loneliness of being young and big and feared by everyone around you. Sarah listened and held him, understanding for the first time the full weight of what Jack carried. Not just guilt for the women he'd hurt, but grief for a childhood stolen by violence, for a family lost too soon, for years of believing he was a monster because everyone told him so. You're not a monster, she said when he finished. You never were. I hurt people. By accident. Because you're built different and nobody taught you how to navigate that. But you learned, Jack. You stopped. You changed. That's what matters. You really believe that. With my whole heart. He kissed her, then soft and grateful. And when they made love that night, it felt different, deeper, more vulnerable. Like Jack had finally allowed himself to be fully seen and loved despite his scars. Afterward, lying in the darkness, Jack spoke so quietly, Sarah almost missed it. I want a family with you, kids, a house full of noise and mess and love. I want to be the father I never had. Want to show our children that strength isn't about hurting people, it's about protecting them. Sarah's heart swelled. How many kids? As many as you'll give me, though I'm terrified I'll hurt you getting them here. We'll figure it out, just like we've figured out everything else. Yeah. He pulled her close. Yeah, we will. The next Sunday at church, the town noticed something had shifted. Jack held his head higher. Sarah glowed with happiness. And when Mrs. Abernathy tried to make a snide comment, Jack simply smiled and said, Bless your heart, ma'am. I hope you have a wonderful day. The phrase, polite dismissal, wrapped in Southern courtesy, left Mrs. Abernathy speechless. After church, Nancy Carmichael approached them. Tom Jenkins stood beside her, his hand protective on her back. Mrs. Morgan, Mr. Morgan. Nancy's voice was tentative. Could I speak with you both for a moment? They stepped aside from the crowd. Nancy's hands twisted together nervously. I heard what happened with Rebecca's brother. Heard he came to the ranch. She took a breath. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. For lying about what happened between us. for making people think you'd forced me. You didn't deserve that." Jack's voice was gentle. "I appreciate that, Nancy. But I should have refused you more firmly. Should have—" "No." Nancy cut him off. "I was engaged. I knew what I was doing. And when it hurt, I panicked and blamed you instead of taking responsibility for my own choice. That was wrong." Tom Jenkins spoke up. "Nancy told me the truth about a year ago. Took a lot of courage for her to admit she'd lied. And it took even more for her to come here today." "I just wanted you to know," Nancy said, looking at Sarah. "Your husband is a good man. Better than I gave him credit for. And I hope you'll both be happy." Sarah squeezed her hand. "Thank you. That means a lot." After Nancy and Tom walked away, Sarah turned to Jack. "People are starting to see the truth. Took long enough. Better late than never." Over the next few weeks, the town's attitude continued to shift. People saw Jack help Mr. Chen repair his store after a storm. Saw him give credit at the general store to the widow Harrison when she couldn't pay. Saw him sit with old Mr. Henderson and read to him when Mr. Henderson's eyesight failed completely. Slowly, grudgingly, Redemption Creek began to accept that maybe Jack Morgan wasn't the monster they'd thought. Maybe he was just a man trying to be good. And Sarah bloomed. She learned to run the ranch, to manage the books, to negotiate with suppliers. She discovered she had a head for business and a talent for problem solving. Jack relied on her opinion, asked her advice, treated her as a true partner. 3 months after their wedding, Sarah missed her monthly courses. At first, she didn't think much of it. Stress could cause delays, and she'd been working hard. But when the second month came and went with no blood, she began to suspect. She waited another week before telling Jack, wanting to be sure. When she finally worked up the courage, they were in bed, the lamp burning low. "Jack, I need to tell you something." He immediately tensed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. At least I don't think it is." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "I think I might be pregnant." Jack went completely still. "Pregnant?" "I've missed 2 courses, and I've been feeling sick in the mornings. And my breasts are tender. So, unless I'm wrong, I think—" He kissed her, cutting off her words. When he pulled back, his face was wet with tears. "We're having a baby." "I think so. We should probably see Doc Williams to be sure, but—" "We're having a baby." He said it like a prayer, like a miracle. His hand spread wide over her stomach. "There's a person in there. Our person." "Are you happy?" "Happy." His voice cracked. "Sarah Beth, I'm terrified and thrilled and so grateful I can barely breathe. We're having a baby." They held each other, both crying, both laughing, both overwhelmed by the enormity of it. "I'm going to be a father," Jack whispered. "I'm going to have a son or daughter. I'm going to teach them to ride and read and be kind. I'm going to show them what love looks like. I'm going to—" "You're going to be an amazing father." "What if I'm not? What if I'm like my father was?" "You won't be, because you're already worried about it, which means you care. Your father never cared." She touched his face. "You're going to be the father you needed, Jack. I know you will." He buried his face in her neck and cried deep, wrenching sobs that shook his whole body. Sarah held him through it, understanding that he was crying for the child he'd been, for the father he'd never had, and for the miracle of getting to break that cycle. When he finally calmed, he looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "We need to be careful now. No more. I mean, we can't—" "Jack, pregnant women can still make love with their husbands. But what if I hurt you or the baby? We'll be careful. We'll adjust. But I'm not giving up my husband's touch for 9 months." "Sarah Beth." "No arguments. We'll talk to Doc Williams tomorrow and ask him what's safe. But I'm not treating you like a stranger just because I'm carrying your child." Jack looked torn between desire and fear. "You're going to be the death of me, woman." "I certainly hope not. I have plans for you. Plans involving this baby." Plans involving many babies. This is just the first. His eyes went wide. Many. You said you wanted a house full of noise and mess and love. That requires more than one child. I'm going to spend the rest of my life terrified, aren't I? Probably. But you'll be happy too. He kissed her stomach gently, reverently. Hello in there, little one. This is your papa. I don't know much about being a father, but I promise I'll try my best. And your mama, she's the bravest, smartest, most beautiful woman in the world, so you're already pretty lucky. Sarah's eyes filled with fresh tears. This man, this gentle giant who'd been called a monster, was going to be a father. Their child would grow up knowing safety and love and tenderness. The cycle was broken. The next day, Doc Williams confirmed what Sarah already knew. She was about 10 weeks along, due sometime in late winter. Doc gave them instructions: no heavy lifting for Sarah, plenty of rest, good food. And yes, intimacy was fine, as long as they were careful. Jack listened intently, asking questions, taking mental notes. When they left the doctor's office, he helped Sarah into the wagon like she was made of glass. I can still climb into a wagon by myself, Jack. I know, but humor me. On Sunday, they shared the news with Mama and Papa at lunch. Mama burst into tears immediately, pulling Sarah into a crushing hug. Papa shook Jack's hand, his eyes bright. Congratulations, son. You're going to be a wonderful father. I hope so, sir. I know so. Any man who looks at his wife the way you look at Sarah Beth has enough love to spare. By evening, the news had spread through Redemption Creek. People stopped by the ranch all week with congratulations and gifts. Baby blankets, carved wooden toys, jars of preserves. Even Mrs. Abernathy showed up with a tiny crocheted cap. For the baby, she said gruffly. Every child deserves a proper cap. Thank you, Mrs. Abernathy. It's beautiful. Yes, well, I suppose you and Mr. Morgan are doing all right for yourselves. The baby will be loved, at least. That's more than some children get. It was the closest thing to approval Mrs. Abernathy had ever given them. That night, lying in bed with Jack's hand on her growing belly, Sarah felt a peace she'd never known. Her life had turned out nothing like she'd expected. She'd married a man the town feared defied her parents' initial wishes, chosen passion over propriety, and she'd never been happier. What are you thinking about? Jack asked. How strange life is. 6 months ago, I was the preacher's sheltered daughter. Now I'm a rancher's wife carrying his child. If you'd told me this would happen, I never would have believed you. Regret any of it? Not for a second. She turned to face him. You gave me a life bigger than the cage I was living in. You asked me what I wanted and then helped me get it. How could I regret that? I love you, Sarah Beth Morgan. I love you too, Jack Morgan. You and this baby and this life we're building together. Outside, the prairie stretched dark and endless. Inside, wrapped in each other's arms, Jack and Sarah dreamed of the future of a child, learning to walk in these rooms of laughter, echoing off these walls of a family built on honesty and courage and love that refused to quit. The town scandal had become a love story. The monster had become a man. And the preacher's trembling daughter had become a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she wanted. The story wasn't over. But this chapter, this beautiful, imperfect, honest chapter, had a happy ending. And sometimes that's enough. Winter came hard that year, arriving early with bitter winds and snow that piled against the barn doors. Sarah's belly grew round as the days grew short, and Jack became more protective with each passing week. You shouldn't be out here, he said for the 100th time, finding her in the barn feeding the chickens. The chickens need to eat whether I'm pregnant or not. I can feed the chickens. You're fixing the fence on the north pasture. I'm perfectly capable of scattering grain. She rubbed her swollen stomach. Besides, the baby likes it when I move around. Gets restless if I sit too long. Jack's face softened immediately. He crossed to her and placed his large hand over hers on her belly. How's our little one today? Active, been kicking all morning. As if on cue, the baby kicked hard against their joined hands. Jack's eyes went wide. "Did you feel that? Hard to miss. This child has your strength already. Or your stubbornness." He kissed her forehead. "All right, finish with the chickens. But then inside. It's too cold out here." Sarah was 8 months along now, heavy and tired, and more uncomfortable than she'd admit to Jack. Her back ached constantly. Her feet swelled. Sleep came in short bursts between trips to the outhouse. But she'd never complain, not when Jack looked at her like she was performing a miracle just by breathing. Mama visited twice a week now, bringing food and advice, and her own pregnancy stories. She'd sit with Sarah in the warm kitchen while Jack worked outside, the two of them knitting baby clothes and talking about everything and nothing. "Your father couldn't stop pacing when I was in labor with you," Mama said one afternoon, her needles clicking steadily. "Wore a path in the floorboards. The midwife finally kicked him out of the house. Will Papa come when it's time? Wild horses couldn't keep him away. He's been praying every night for a safe delivery." Mama's voice softened. "We lost your brother during birth, you know. The cord was wrapped around his neck. By the time the midwife realized, it was too late." Sarah's hand went to her belly. "I didn't know that. We don't talk about it much. Too painful." Mama set down her knitting. "But I want you to know childbirth is dangerous, Sarah Beth. Even with a good midwife, even with prayers and preparation, things can go wrong. You're not making me feel better." "I'm not trying to. I'm preparing you." Mama took her hand. "Doc Williams will be there. I'll be there. And Jack will probably need to be restrained, but he'll be nearby. You'll have help. But you need to be ready for it to hurt worse than anything you've imagined." "Worse than the wedding night." Mama's laugh was sharp. "Oh, sweetheart, the wedding night was nothing compared to pushing a baby out, especially a baby fathered by a man Jack's size." Sarah's stomach lurched. She'd been trying not to think about that particular detail. But Mama was right. If the baby took after Jack in size, the delivery would be difficult. "I'm scared," Sarah admitted. "Good. Fear keeps you smart. Just remember, women have been doing this since the beginning of time. Your body knows what to do even if your mind doesn't." That night, Sarah told Jack about her fears. They lay in bed, his hand making slow circles on her belly, the baby restless beneath his palm. "What if something goes wrong?" she whispered. "Nothing's going to go wrong." "You don't know that." Jack was quiet for a moment. "You're right, I don't. But I know that Doc Williams is the best doctor in 3 counties. I know your mama survived 2 births. And I know that you're the strongest person I've ever met. If anyone can do this, it's you. What if the baby's too big? What if I can't? Then we'll figure it out, together, like we've figured out everything else." He kissed her temple. "Sarah Beth, I won't lie and say I'm not terrified. I am. The thought of losing you." His voice cracked. "But I have to believe you'll both be okay, because the alternative is unthinkable." Sarah turned in his arms, awkward with her belly between them. "Promise me something. Anything. If something goes wrong, if you have to choose, save the baby." Jack went rigid. "No." "Jack. Absolutely not. I'm not having this conversation. We need to. If Doc Williams has to choose, he won't choose because I'll tell him to save you, every time, without question." Jack's voice was fierce. "I love this baby already, Sarah Beth. But I fell in love with you first, and I can survive losing a child I've never met. I can't survive losing you. That's not fair to the baby. I don't care about fair. I care about you." He cupped her face. "Besides, we can have more babies. But there's only one you. And I'm not letting you go. Not for anything." Sarah wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. She'd never seen him so serious, so certain. So she just nodded and let him hold her, both of them, pretending they weren't terrified of what was coming. 2 weeks later, Sarah woke in the middle of the night to wetness between her legs and a cramping pain low in her belly. For a moment she was confused, disoriented. Then understanding hit. "Jack?" She shook him awake. "Jack, it's time." He bolted upright, instantly alert. "Time, you mean? The baby's coming." Jack moved faster than Sarah had ever seen him move. He lit lamps, dressed in record time, helped her into a clean nightgown. His hands shook as he fastened the buttons. "I'm getting Doc Williams, and your mama. Don't move, don't do anything. Just breathe. Jack, first babies take hours, sometimes days. You don't have to. I'm getting them now." He kissed her hard and fast. "I love you. I'll be right back." Then he was gone, running into the cold night. Sarah heard his horse thunder away, and suddenly she was alone with the pain and the fear and the knowledge that everything was about to change. Another contraction hit stronger than the first. Sarah gripped the bedpost and breathed through it like Mama had taught her. The pain was deep and primal, different from anything she'd experienced before. This was her body opening, preparing to bring life into the world. The thought was terrifying and miraculous in equal measure. Jack returned within the hour, bringing Doc Williams' Mama and Papa. Doc took charge immediately, sending the men out of the bedroom and examining Sarah with brisk efficiency. "Baby's positioned well," he announced. "But it's going to be a long labor. First babies usually are." He was right. The contractions came in waves, growing stronger and closer together as the hours passed. Sarah walked when she could, rested when she couldn't, and breathed through pain that made her wedding night seem like nothing. Mama stayed by her side, wiping her face with cool cloths, murmuring encouragement. "You're doing so well, sweetheart. So strong." "It hurts," Sarah gasped between contractions. "I know, but every pain brings you closer to meeting your baby." Outside the bedroom door, Sarah could hear Jack pacing, could hear Papa's low voice trying to calm him, could hear Jack's responses tight with fear. "How much longer?" "These things take time, son." "She's been in pain for hours. And she'll likely be in pain for several more. That's the way of it." "I can't stand this. I can't stand hearing her hurt and not being able to help." Papa's voice was gentle. "This is part of being a husband, Jack. Standing by helpless while the woman you love goes through something you can never fully understand. All you can do is be ready to hold her when it's over." As the sun set again, a full day of labor now, the contractions became unbearable. Sarah screamed through them, no longer caring who heard. The pain consumed everything, left no room for dignity or restraint. "I can't do this," she sobbed to Mama. "I can't. It's too much." "You can, and you are. You're almost there, Sarah Beth. Almost done." Doc Williams checked her again. "It's time to push. Next contraction, I need you to bear down." Sarah had never worked so hard in her life. Pushing felt like being torn apart from the inside. She gripped Mama's hand so hard she left bruises, screamed until her throat was raw, pushed until she thought she might die from the effort. "I can see the head," Doc Williams said. "One more big push. Come on, Mrs. Morgan, bring your baby into the world." Sarah gathered every ounce of strength she had left and pushed. The pain was blinding, all-consuming. She felt herself tearing, felt impossible pressure, and then sudden relief as the baby slipped free. A cry pierced the air, high and indignant and absolutely beautiful. "It's a boy," Doc Williams announced, holding up a squirming, bloody infant. "A big, healthy boy." Sarah collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her face. Mama was crying too, laughing and crying at the same time. Doc cleaned the baby and wrapped him in a blanket, then placed him in Sarah's arms. She looked down at her son, her and Jack's son, and felt her heart expand to impossible size. He was perfect. Tiny fists, waving eyes squinted against the lamplight, a shock of dark hair already visible. And big, even she could tell he was big for a newborn. "Let his father in," Doc Williams said to Mama. "Let him meet his son." Mama opened the door. "Jack, come meet your boy." Jack burst into the room, his face pale and terrified. His eyes went to Sarah first, checking that she was alive and whole. Then they dropped to the bundle in her arms. He crossed the room slowly, like he was afraid of breaking something. When he reached the bed, he just stood there, staring down at his son with an expression of absolute wonder. "He's here," Jack whispered. "He's really here." "He's perfect," Sarah said. "Want to hold him?" Jack looked terrified. "What if I drop him?" "You won't drop him. Sit down." Jack sat carefully on the edge of the bed. Sarah placed the baby in his arms, showing him how to support the head. Jack held his son like he was made of glass and stardust, his large hands cradling the tiny body with infinite gentleness. "Hello, little man," Jack said softly. "I'm your papa. And I promise I'm going to be the father I never had. You're going to grow up knowing you're loved and wanted and safe. You're never going to wonder if you matter, because you matter more than anything in this world." He looked up at Sarah, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you. Thank you for him. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for everything." "We made him together," Sarah said. "He's ours." Doc Williams finished his work, declaring that Sarah had torn but would heal fine with rest. Mama shooed everyone out so Sarah could sleep, but Jack refused to leave. He sat in the chair beside the bed, their son in his arms, watching them both with fierce devotion. "You should rest," Sarah murmured. "I'll rest when you do. Right now, I just want to look at you both and make sure this is real." "It's real. We're parents now. Terrifying, isn't it?" Jack's laugh was wet. "Absolutely terrifying. But also the best thing that's ever happened to me." He looked down at the sleeping baby. "What should we name him?" Sarah had been thinking about this for months. "I like Samuel, after your mother's father." Jack's breath caught. "How did you know my grandfather's name was Samuel?" "You told me once months ago. You said he was the only family member who was ever kind to you." "He died when I was 8. Used to take me fishing and tell me stories about being a young man. Made me feel like maybe I wasn't a monster after all." Jack's voice was thick with emotion. "Samuel Morgan. I like that. I like that a lot." Papa knocked softly and entered. "May I meet my grandson?" Jack stood and carefully transferred the baby to Papa's arms. Papa looked down at his first grandchild, his stern face softening completely. "Welcome to the world, young Samuel. You've got a good strong name and good strong parents. You're blessed beyond measure." He looked at Jack. "Your son is beautiful. Congratulations, Jack." "Thank you, sir. For everything. For giving Sarah Beth permission to marry me. For trusting me with your daughter. For seeing the man you were trying to become instead of the man you'd been." Papa handed the baby back. "You've earned that trust, son, many times over." Over the next few weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Samuel was a good baby, only crying when hungry or wet. But he was big, growing fast, demanding frequent feedings. Sarah was exhausted, her body healing slowly, her nights broken by nursing and diaper changes. Jack helped with everything. He changed diapers without complaint, walked the floor with Samuel when he was fussy, brought Sarah water and food while she nursed. He was patient and gentle and completely devoted. "You're a natural," Sarah said one night watching him rock their son. "I'm terrified I'm doing everything wrong." "You're doing everything right. Look at him, he's completely content in your arms." Jack looked down at Samuel, who was indeed fast asleep, his tiny fist wrapped around Jack's finger. "I can't believe he's ours. Can't believe we made something this perfect." "He has your eyes. And your nose, thank God. Poor kid would have looked like a prize fighter with mine." Sarah laughed. The sound felt good, normal, like maybe they really could do this. Maybe they really could raise this tiny human and not completely mess him up. By the time spring arrived, Samuel was 4 months old and thriving. The town had fully accepted the Morgans by now, stopping by with gifts and advice, offering to help with chores. Even Mrs. Abernathy had softened, bringing by a basket of her famous apple preserves. "For the baby," she said gruffly. "Growing boys need good food." "Thank you, Mrs. Abernathy. That's very kind." "Yes, well, you and Mr. Morgan have done well for yourselves. The boy is clearly loved. That's what matters." One Sunday after church, Rebecca's brother Thomas appeared again. Sarah tensed, but Thomas's face was friendly. "I heard you had a baby. Wanted to stop by and offer congratulations." "Thank you," Jack said carefully. "How's Rebecca?" "Married now. Expecting her own baby come fall. She's happy, Jack, really happy. And she wanted me to tell you she's forgiven you. Said to tell you she hopes you're as happy as she is." Jack's eyes filled with tears. "Tell her thank you, and that I'm happier than I ever thought possible." After Thomas left, Sarah squeezed Jack's hand. "It's really over now. All the old hurts, all the old guilt. You can let it go." "I know. I finally know." That night, putting Samuel to bed in his cradle, Jack spoke quietly. "I want more of these. More babies. More chances to be a good father. Is that crazy?" "Not crazy, but can we wait until this one sleeps through the night?" Jack laughed. "Fair enough." 2 years passed, then 3. Samuel grew into a bright, active toddler with his father's size and his mother's curiosity, and Sarah's belly grew round again. Twins this time, a boy and a girl born during a thunderstorm that shook the house. The delivery was harder than Samuel's. Sarah bled more than Doc Williams liked, scared Jack half to death. But she survived, and so did the babies. David and Grace Morgan entered the world squalling and healthy. 3 children, Jack said, looking shell-shocked at the twin cradles. "We have 3 children. Your house full of noise and mess and love," Sarah reminded him. "This is what you wanted. This is more than I ever dreamed I'd have." He pulled her close, careful of her healing body. "You've given me everything, Sarah Beth. A home, a family, a reason to be better. I don't have words for what that means." "You don't need words. I see it every day in how you love us." 5 years after their wedding, the Morgans were a fixture in Redemption Creek. Jack served on the church board. Sarah ran a small school from their home, teaching the ranch children their letters. Their house was always full, kids running through, neighbors stopping by, Mama and Papa visiting weekly to spoil their grandchildren. One evening, Sarah found Jack sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Samuel on one knee and Grace on the other. David was asleep against his chest. The sight made her heart swell. "You look content," she said, sitting beside him. "I am. More than I ever thought possible." He looked at her. "Do you remember that first day at the creek when you asked me what I dreamed about?" "I remember. I told you I'd never let myself dream, but that was a lie. I did dream, Sarah Beth. I dreamed of this, a family, a home, someone who'd see past the monster everyone said I was. I just never thought it would actually happen. And now I wake up every morning grateful. Grateful you chose me. Grateful for our children. Grateful for this life we've built." He shifted Grace to his other knee. "I'm not the man I was when we met. You changed me. You changed yourself. I just gave you a reason to. No, you gave me hope. There's a difference." Samuel squirmed. "Papa, tell us the story again, about the butter churn." Jack laughed. "You've heard that story 100 times. But it's the best story, about how you met Mama." So Jack told the story again about a preacher's daughter who dropped a butter churn and a rancher who helped her pick up the pieces. About secret meetings at a creek and a confession in a church. About 6 weeks of proper courting and a wedding that scandalized a town. "And they lived happily ever after?" Grace asked when he finished. "They're still living it," Jack said. "Every single day." Sarah looked at her family, her husband holding their children, the ranch spreading out before them, the life they'd built against all odds, and felt peace settle into her bones. She'd left her cage 5 years ago, had chosen curiosity over fear, want over propriety, love over safety. And she'd found something more precious than gold, a partner who saw her children, who loved her, a life bigger than anything she'd been told to want. The town scandal had become a love story. The monster had become a man. And the preacher's trembling daughter had become a woman who knew exactly who she was. Years later, when Samuel asked his mother what the secret to happiness was, Sarah thought about that first morning at the creek, about Jack's warning that once you open certain doors, you can never close them again, about the choice she'd made to walk through anyway. The secret, she told her son, is choosing brave over safe, choosing to believe in people and in yourself, even when everyone says you're wrong. Choosing love even when it's terrifying. Because the best things in life aren't the ones that come easy. They're the ones you have to fight for. Samuel considered this. Like Papa fighting for you. Like both of us fighting for each other. That's what love is, sweetheart. Not one person saving another. But two people choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard. And that, Sarah thought, watching Jack teach David how to rope a fence post while Grace picked wildflowers nearby, was the truth at the heart of their story. Not that love conquers all, but that love makes the fight worthwhile. That redemption isn't something you find. It's something you build piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. That monsters are just people who've never been loved right. And that sometimes, if you're brave enough and patient enough and foolish enough to try, you can teach them how to love themselves. The sun set over the Morgan Ranch, painting everything gold. Inside the house, laughter echoed off the walls. Outside, the prairie stretched endless and free. And Sarah Beth Morgan stood on her porch, her husband's hand in hers, and knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice all those years ago, when she'd walked through the willows to meet a dangerous man by a creek at dawn. Because some risks are worth taking. Some doors are meant to be opened. And some love stories start with trembling hands and a broken butter churn, and end with a legacy of courage that echoes through generations. This was theirs, imperfect, hard-won, and absolutely real, and that made it the most beautiful story ever told.